Excellent. Okay. Good. I want to try to start in time because we have a packed program. And I want to be sure that everybody who is on the program and you all also over there, there's enough time to have to start this dialogue. And I'm going to start and kick off this afternoon. Dear Prime Minister, dear Deputy Prime Minister, dear colleagues from all the countries, members, ladies and gentlemen, I have the absolute pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the S&D Group in the European Parliament and its President, Irache Garcia Perez, who was not able to be here, and to welcome you to today's Enlargement Conference. It's a sincere honor to welcome you in this House, and can I say as a very timely moment with geopolitics in dire straits and deepening divide between former allies, creating a chasm in decades of economic cooperation and dialogue, we meet to talk about greater cooperation, enlargement and solidarity, and that is at such a very hopeful thought. And I want to start this conference by asking the question, what does it truly mean to be a European? For many European citizens, especially when you look at the older and founding countries, one of them is the country I know best, this has become almost an abstract question to be a European. Certainly for the younger generation, who have never known anything other than peace, security, stability, that has been the product of the European Union. But this does not mean that they do not consider it important or that these younger generations, they do not care about it. On the contrary, but the existence of the European Union for them seems to be almost self-evident. When you would ask that younger generation, they would talk about architecture, they would talk about films, or the delicious cuisine, our diversity that transcends borders and generations, our economy, our monuments, our art, our history, our wine and spirits, that, with some thanks to Donald Trump, we will soon have to consume all by ourselves. Or they would talk about their own future, their own aspirations, and the path they want to take to achieve their goals. And it shows the enormous progress that European societies have made since the funding project Europe. But for others, both in countries inside and outside the EU, that European dream is much more tangible. The European dream for them is the same as the one that once united our European founding fathers, the idea of peace, progress, and freedom through cooperation. The idea of being part of something bigger and building a shared future. That was the European dream of Schuman, of Spaak. It is the European dream of many citizens in your countries, in the candidate countries. And it is very understandable. It's about their future. It's about the future of their children, of their grandchildren, and about all the generation after that. It's about the age-old human hope that tomorrow will be better than it is today. More free, more prosperous, and more democratic. Ask that to the 24,000 Poles who took the streets under the previous government, waving European flags in the streets of their capital. Ask the young people in Hungary, living under Orban's autocracy. Ask the Ukrainians what they're fighting for, the students in Serbia. Ask the more than 2 million Turks who protest as it stands today against the arrest of Imamoglu. Ask them what the European dream is about. It is human rights, democracy, freedom. It is a future and it is hope. And isn't that exactly what we need in the world today? We, the progressive forces of the European Union, always have stood strong in support for EU enlargement. We believe that enlargement is an investment into peace, stability, prosperity of the European continent. A credible enlargement policy is based on fair and strict conditionalities for EU accession and the principle of the own merits. It requires candidate countries to implement complex reforms in many areas, such as rule of law, the economy, environment, the fight against corruption and organized crime. At the same time, candidate countries are expected to develop their administrative structures. Reconciliation, good neighboring relations, and the regional cooperation are of the utmost importance. It's our firm belief that, as part of the preparation of the future EU accession, we also need to establish, broaden and intensify the political networks for a fruitful cooperation from within the EU institution. And that is why, ahead of the 2004 EU enlargement, our group actively worked with political partners from aspiring EU member states and members of the European Parliament to join that. At that time, these activities were run in the framework of a program called the Willy Brandt program. After that enlargement, we welcomed 40 new MEPs from the 10 new EU member states. Many of them had already been serving as their country's observers in the European Parliament before the actual accession of the 1st of May. I'm happy to inform you that for the next enlargement, we want to offer observer membership in our group for progressive sister parties of those candidate countries who are ready to join. And we want to make this observer membership in our political group possible even before the European Parliament will grant the opportunity to become a formal observer of MEP. Today's conference on the relaunch of the Willy Brandt programme for this legislation will mark that as an important starting point. And we do that to send a clear message in support of EU enlargement, but also because we believe enlargement requires cooperation from the outset of the enlargement process and throughout responding to the needs of progressive parties and civil societies and actors in preparing for the EU accession. We are determined to help our friends, preparing for and ensuring a smooth EU accession process. This, dear colleagues, is our common future. It should be our common business, and we are ready to start the work because that is exactly what enlargement is all about. Thank you very much. And let me now immediately give the floor to our first distinguished guest of today, the Prime Minister of Kosovo, Mr. Kurti, please.
Dear comrades, Kathleen van Brandt, dear Andras Scheider and Tonino Pizzula and other MEPs attending this event, dear friends, fellow progressives, honored guests, it is my pleasure to address you at a gathering that carries the name of one of Europe's greatest social democrats, Willy Brandt. A man who devoted himself to freedom, peace, and democracy, and who understood profoundly that peace is not merely the absence of war, but the presence of justice. As he stood before the Warsaw Ghetto Memorial and knelt, Willy Brandt did not speak, yet his silence echoed louder than any speech. He reminded the world that reconciliation is built not on forgetting or denying, but on accepting responsibility. Today, in the face of renewed threats to democracy and peace and to European unity, it is not enough to simply admire Willy Brandt's legacy. We must rise to it. As social democrats, we share the belief that politics must serve the people, not the powerful. That economy must work for everyone, not just for the wealthy. And that democracy must be defended, not just during crisis. It is no exaggeration to say that democracy today is under attack. From the rise of far right in our parliaments to the spread of disinformation in our societies, from oligarchs' ownership of the media to the corruption that undermines trust in our institutions, the threats we face are present and they are real. This means that all of us have a responsibility to stand up and do our part. As Karl Popper warned us, the enemy of open society is not just the tyrant, but those who look the other way. We must not look the other way. The European Union has never meant to be just an economic project. It was first and foremost a project built on the rejection of fascism that tore our continent apart. An idea laid out by Schuman and Monnet and perfected by leaders like Willy Brandt, who understood that Europe would only survive if it worked together with solidarity based on shared values of democracy, human dignity, and civil rights. They understood that conflict could be avoided by working together through common institutions. Thus, at a time when Europe was still cleaning up the rubble left by World War II, when pain and suffering were great and hatred and mistrust were still prevalent, those leaders gave us the European coal and steel community, which laid the foundations for a peaceful and united Europe. Today, this legacy, the European Union, which has brought the longest peace Europe has ever witnessed, is under attack by some leaders who claim the European Union is a threat to their sovereignty, when in fact it is the greatest protector of it. These leaders are weaponizing economic fears to turn workers against migrants and citizens against each other. In an era where information is easily manipulated through fake news, deep fakes, and disinformation campaigns designed to sow doubt in democracy, they can succeed unless we, as progressives, take a stand. Because we've seen this movie before and we know how it ends. To be frank, those in Europe who attack the European Union on the grounds that it undermines state sovereignty, whether intentionally or not, are catering to Russia and those who seek to divide the European Union. No European state today possesses the strength to stand alone against the great powers of the world. So when and if we fail to stand together, we will forfeit our collective influence and security. The European Union must be defended, for it is indispensable to our shared future. The future of my country, Republic of Kosovo, and all other countries in Europe is linked with the future of Europe. And the future of Europe is linked with the success of the European Union. Europe's commitments to its fundamental values and principles are also being tested in the Western Balkans. For decades, our region has been promised a European future within the European Union, yet that future has not materialized. The merit-based process focused on EU fundamental values gave way to maintaining stability and the status quo. This approach favored strong leaders over strong values. Leaders who, instead of committing to reforms, focused on strengthening their grip on power. Of course, it is the citizens of the Western Balkans who are paying the price for such policies. But if these policies are not adjusted, it will be Europe that ultimately pays the price. History has shown us that our fates are interlinked. A conflict in one corner of Europe threatens our collective security, and again, the Western Balkans are surrounded by the borders of the European Union. We are not European Union's neighbor. We are European Union's front yard. There is no better example of the EU's test than my country, Kosovo. Kosovo is a success story. From a society devastated by war, we have built a country that is one of the fastest growing economies in the region, and we are becoming one of the most vibrant democracies in Europe. In the last 4 years, we have improved by 31 places in the fight against corruption, according to Transparency International. We've seen the fastest rise in rule of law indicators, according to the World Justice Project, and improved liberal and electoral democracy and global freedoms, according to Freedom House and VDEM Institute. We had an average economic growth rate of 6%, and for the first time since independence, we have completed a full electoral mandate of 4 years. For us progressives, economic growth means social well-being. Growth is not supposed to be held back for the state, but should be distributed in the society and create equal opportunities for all. Every 8th euro of our growing economy, which was achieved despite multiple crises, was redistributed to those most vulnerable who are struggling with the economic crisis, citizens and small businesses. This made us the government with the biggest support package in the region relative to GDP, as confirmed by the World Bank. And we have moved from being a recipient of World Bank aid to becoming a donor. We introduced for the first time allowances for new mothers and children, increased pensions by 20% and more than doubled the minimum wage. All this was done without changing fiscal policy and all the while maintaining the lowest public debt in Europe, 16.52% of GDP, so that we do not develop or grow at the expense of future generations. Kosovo is doing its homework when it comes to enlargement. Besides advancing democracy and growing our economy, we are among top performers when it comes to integration in the European Union. Over the past 4 years, we have successfully addressed numerous long-delayed reforms related to the EU acquis, which have been consistently recommended by the EU for a decade now. In the latest progress report, we scored progress in 36 areas. Only in 2 areas there was no progress, and without any areas with regress. We are the most proactive member of the Berlin process and regional economic cooperation. We are the first country to deliver in time the EU reform agenda for the growth plan for the Western Balkans, and we are among the first to adopt all Berlin process agreements in our parliament. Everyone recognizes Kosovo's impressive progress, yet our application for European Union membership has been left to gather dust for 27 months since we applied. Likewise, our application for Council of Europe is met with resistance and additional criteria that no other country in Europe has been subjected to in their membership process. Meanwhile, within the European Union, we still have 5 member states that refuse to recognize Kosovo as a sovereign state. This weakens the strength of the European Union and Europe itself. Instead of working together to tackle global challenges such as social inequality, climate change, and rising authoritarianism, we are forced to look inward. It was in the chambers of the European Union that one day after Kosovo declared independence, the 27 members of the EU, including today's 5 non-recognizers, in the format of Ministers of Foreign Affairs, issued joint conclusions stating, I quote, "The Council reiterates the European Union's adherence to the principles of the United Nations Charter and the Helsinki Final Act, inter alia the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity and all UN Security Council resolutions. It underlines its conviction that in view of the conflict of the 90s, and the extended period of international administration under Security Council Resolution 1244, Kosovo constitutes a sui generis case, which does not call into question these principles and resolutions," end of quotation. 2 years later, the highest court in the world, the International Court of Justice, issued an opinion on our Declaration of Independence, which concluded by 10 votes to 4 that the court, I quote, "is of the opinion that the Declaration of Independence of Kosovo adopted on 17 February 2008 did not violate international law," end of quotation. The 5 remaining EU countries must recognize Kosovo, not just because it is the right thing to do, but because a divided European Union on such a fundamental issue withers the EU itself and erodes its foreign policy. A weakened Europe emboldens those who wish to see it fail, autocrats and who believe democracy is negotiable. Indeed, recognizing Kosovo is not only the right thing to do, it is important for the EU's strength, unity, and credibility on the global stage. Europe, again, must be defended both politically and militarily. Putin's war on Ukraine is not just an attack on Ukraine, it is an attack on all of us. We must unite and do more. We must invest in our defense, not because we want war, but because we need peace. As Willy Brandt once said, peace is not everything, but without peace, everything is nothing. That is why Europe must not hesitate to strengthen its security and why NATO must remain the cornerstone of our collective defense. We have already met NATO's threshold of 2% of GDP spending on defense, but we recognize that we must do more as part of our collective responsibility. And we will, because we cannot allow autocrats, whether in Moscow or in Belgrade, to determine the future of our continent. And being here among social progressives, where critique is the drive of progress, I want to end my speech in a rather critical note. In these 4 years of my mandate, I have observed a disheartening pattern. Our efforts to advance democracy, the rule of law, and the EU fundamental values are increasingly acknowledged in words, but too rarely supported in action. In other words, our policies have been more liked than supported, while our northern neighbors' policies have been less liked but more supported. Our northern neighbor, who is aggressive and provokes tension and seeks destabilization, today harbors and protects a terrorist, yet it is Kosovo that remains under European Union's restrictive measures. If we were in the 2000s, such a situation would have been unacceptable to any democratic government. And yet today it is tolerated, sometimes even rationalized here in Brussels, where our northern neighbors' simultaneous alignment with both Moscow and Brussels is viewed as a strategic balancing act rather than what it truly is, an affront to EU values and a reflection of failed policy towards Serbia. This is not simply an inconsistency, it is a challenge to the credibility and reputation of the European project. If Brussels is to still be a guardian of Europe's founding principles, then its support must go to those who uphold them, not to those who compromise them. And yet I remain confident that a Europe that aligns its values with its decisions is not only possible, but also necessary now more than ever. Clarity and firmness will make the EU enlargement process stronger, fairer, and ultimately more enduring. Kosovo stands ready to be part of that future. I would like to express in the end my gratitude for the commitment of the Foundation for European Progressive Studies, together with partners Friedrich Ebert, Max van der Stoel, and Olof Palme. I would like also to extend my thanks for FEPS and all these above-mentioned partners and others, like the Foundation Jean Jaurès from France, for their joint leadership in conducting the Social Democratic Network Friends of the Western Balkans, from which I have very fond memories of our meeting a year ago in Pristina. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for your speech, but also for the content of your speech. And as our panel today is called the first panel, Practical Support for EU Accession Preparation, it is about that we as S&D Group also here not only to give input and a platform, but also to listen what can be our practical support for the EU accession. And you mentioned already, let's say, one point, which is not only like the things, but also to support them more. You can always trust that the S&D Group is on the front line for this, but we also want to collect inputs and for how to shape in the future the Willy Brandt program. Before I introduce also our highlighted panel here, let me also thank for the high attention here, and also mention that we are happy that the Secretary General of the Party of European Socialists is amongst us, the Secretary General from the already mentioned FEPS, and also Tom Boymer, which is our former Secretary General, but now in charge of Ukraine issues, and also a lot of members of the S&D Group, and also our Secretary General of the S&D Group in the European Parliament. So we have a lot of interparliamentary cooperation together, with a lot of platforms as the European Parliament, and S&D members are very active, but also it is important to come together as progressives, as social democrats. And therefore, I want to go also for our first speaker here, which we were going to collect 5 to 7 minutes inputs. And I want to introduce Ola Stenashi-Kiona, Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic integration, but from Ukraine. But she's online and will come a little later. So then we go to Kristina Gerasimov, the Deputy Prime Minister for also European integration of the Republic of Moldova. Please, Kristina.
Thank you very much, Andreas. Good day to everyone, Your Excellencies. It's a great honor to speak in front of you today and share Moldova's experience on how we're doing on our EU accession path. And I was prepared to speak after Olha Stefanishna. It's extremely difficult to speak after Olha Stefanishna. So my task today is a little bit easier from this perspective. Because what we are managing to do these days at home is because of the luxury that we have in Moldova to work in peace on our EU accession path, while our neighbors are fighting for also our freedom, for also our independence, and also for our peace of mind. With that said, I would like to share with you today a few thoughts around the practical support for EU accession for our country. And I will start by sharing with you a little bit of the developments where we are on our accession agenda. So indeed, in the last couple of years, Moldova has progressed significantly in terms of how quickly we moved up from a country that has filed its request for EU membership at the beginning of 2022, and today already being in the midst of a very technical process called the bilateral screening one. We've managed to get to this step in our accession talks due to the fact that we were able to show progress on the 9 reforms that were proposed by the Commission upon receipt of candidate status. We've managed to get the green light from the EU member states in December 2023. We've managed to put together the right structures, the right institutions in place to be able to coordinate in a more efficient manner the efforts that we are undergoing today at home. Last year, according to the Enlargement Package report, Moldova has been assessed to have managed to show progress on 31 out of the 33 chapters. We continue to work also this year. I think the screening process that we are now part of will also show a lot of the reforms that we are undertaking. As we speak, I'm here with the team as part of the screening process, talking about how Moldova gets ready to be part of the customs union. So chapter 29, colleagues from customs service and other important institutions are sharing with the experts in the Commission how we are doing on our accession track when it comes to the customs field. From this perspective, I would like to also take the opportunity to thank the S&D Group for all of the support for the resolutions in support of Moldova's EU accession path that we've seen in the last few years. We appreciate deeply the political support that we get from your family. A different point on our accession agenda is, of course, our accelerated integration. Our accelerated integration is the possibility for our country to already socialize with processes, with institutions as part of not yet being a member of the European Union, but already having some kind of an observer status that allows us to better understand what's coming in front of us. So here we are already part of Connecting Europe facility. We're able to benefit of the Digital Europe program, Single Market program, Fiscalis. We just recently got the good news that we will be able to operationalize our participation in SEPA very soon. These are all very, very practical support steps that bring Moldova and our institutions closer to the status of a EU member. Being part of these programs allow our public servants to be better prepared in terms of expertise and capacities that any member states today already has, but we have to build up to them in the next couple of years. We also look forward this year to be part of Roaming Like at Home, and also we look forward to the full liberalization of the tariff rate quotas that we've been temporarily benefiting from for the last couple of years. So at home, we are preparing, or we are mobilizing our efforts to be ready for EU accession by 2030. It doesn't mean that we will be member by 2030, of course, but what it's important to know is that we have this ambitious goal to be ready in terms of alignment, in terms of implementation within the next 5 years from now. We are very grateful for all of the support that we are getting from the Commission, either through twinning or TIEX projects that are extremely important for us to beef up the capacity that we're still missing when it comes to transposition of the acquis, when it comes to implementation of certain reforms, or when it comes to the actual building of institutions that we still do not have in Moldova. All of these reforms that we are focusing on in the last couple of years, but also the years ahead, are going to be financially underpinned by a very important instrument, the growth plan, that has been, with your gracious support, been accelerated for Moldova. And here I'll take the opportunity to thank S&D Group again for helping accelerate the adoption of the plan and the acceleration of the trialogues that have taken place recently. And we're very grateful for all of the political statements of support that your group has made during the trialogues to support also the increase for the grants component of the growth plan. The growth plan for Moldova is practical support that will help us not only strengthen the pace of the reforms that we are undertaking, but also to strengthen our economy. You know very well that Moldova, being or neighboring Ukraine, has been suffering a lot from quite a low number of investments. We are struggling with keeping the investors who are in Moldova, but we're also struggling with bringing new investors in Moldova. This is, of course, not only due to the war, this is also due to the fact that we haven't yet finalized the justice sector reform, but we're very committed to bringing it to a successful end, because we know how important rule of law is for investors when it comes to bringing their businesses to Moldova. So from this perspective, I would say this is the economic component, the 1.9 billion euros that will help our country not only accelerate the reforms, but also double the potential of our economy. All of these good practical support activities that we receive on behalf of the EU institutions and the EU member states are, of course, not happening in a vacuum. We have been confronting ourselves with unprecedented challenges during the last years, and it is key for us to make sure that we continue preserving the peace and stability in our country. For us, for Moldova, The European Union is indeed a peace project. It's a project that brings stability and prosperity for the citizens that live in this European space, and we want to be part of it. We have been witnessing, especially during the last year, increased interest from Kremlin to destabilize the situation in Moldova, to derail our European path, to distort the very strong support of our citizens to be part of the European Union. All of the Moldovans are Europeans already. As Commissioner Kos has mentioned herself, it's now up to us to bring the state in the European Union. So here I would like to conclude by again reiterating our full commitment as a country, as a society, as a government for the reform agenda that we are ambitiously fulfilling every day as part of this government's mandate. We very much appreciate already the practical support, and I try to give a few examples of how it looks like for Moldova, and we look forward to strengthening it in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Deputy Prime Minister from Moldova. And I will, without wasting any time, go immediately to our friend Tauland Palla, who is the Minister of State from Albania. Please, Tauland.
Thank you, Andreas. Dear progressives, if I would be asked, or also colleagues from the other countries, why we are here today, why the Western Balkan countries, Moldova, Ukraine, and Georgia are knocking at the doors of the European Union, I would suggest that we would be answering through a quote of Willy Brandt, who was saying that we want to take a chance on more democracy. We are here to ask the European Union, not the progressives, progressives have already decided it, but to ask the European Parliament, to ask the European Union to give us a chance on more democracy. And it goes without saying, as it looks right now, that the European Union is the only remaining world most successful invention of democracy. And you should be glad about that, and we are also very glad to join it. And thank you very much. And thank you very much for keeping the doors open. I know it has been very difficult to speak about this some time ahead. And I know, and I'm a 20-year testimony of the fact that S&D has been the one to keep the door open for such a long time, and I'm very thankful for that. Surely, there are other partners in the European Parliament who should be thanking for, and this is very good that you are going back to keep this program, the Willy Brandt program. I've been one of those who have been participating since the very beginning at this program. And I can only tell today that when it comes to my country, our path towards European Union membership, it is more than a political ambition. It is a national mission for us and a historical necessity. For us, joining the European Union means finally stepping out of the shadow from the past and also anchoring ourselves in a future of peace, liberty, freedom, and equal rights. And keep it in mind, it's the only plan we have. We don't have a plan B. Don't ask us for a plan B, we don't have it. It's a plan for the present, and it is the only plan for the future. And we are proud for the significant progress achieved so far, including also, as we are called here to speak about practical support, including the opening of the 2 clusters of negotiating chapters. And we're ready, maybe next month, after winning next elections on 11th of May against socialist winning in Albania. Our ambition remains clear and unchanged to conclude technical negotiations by Christmas 2027 and to become full members by 2030, with the support of the progressives, for sure. The objective, however, does not rest solely on the work of government, because the EU will not integrate only the government of Albania, it will integrate the entire Albanian society, the entire Albanian state, and with all our independent institutions. Therefore, our progress requires, first of all, strong national coordination. It requires accountability and, for sure, consolidated efforts of the Parliament of Albania and our institution, by not forgetting the civil society, who has a very important role to play. We are deeply aware of the process that is so much demanding. It requires deep, sustained reforms, particularly in the rule of law, anti-corruption, judicial independence, and democratic governance. But we are equally aware that these are not imposed conditions. We are not doing that because we are asked by you to do these efforts, but these are values in which we believe in, and because these are essential for our own society to thrive. Our government is very much motivated also to go ahead with innovation in governance. We are now currently developing a groundbreaking AI-based public procurement system in cooperation with Microsoft and Albanian experts. And surely, if I would be asked today what can we do something more visible with the European Parliament, I've been for a long time member of the Stabilization Association parliamentary committees since the very beginning. They are very good. We meet 2 times a year, which is not good. We can meet more regularly. And maybe the European Parliament can be one of the very first institutions in the European Union to give an example that our place is here, so we can participate more oftenly in debates, such as the debates on the future of Europe, the future of European Union, and other very important topics. I just gave an idea. Surely we'll have a long time to discuss during these 2 days meeting. But to conclude, I would like to stress again that for my country, but I do believe that also for the other countries, I'm sure for Kosovo, that's for sure, that the European Union is not merely a destination, it's our only plan for the future. So we are committed to go on this plan, and we are sure that we have your support. And I'm concluding with another quote from Willy Brandt. It often takes more courage to change one's opinion than to keep it. We managed to change your opinion, So now help us to keep it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Tauland-Baller. And as this is also about collecting ideas, but also about taking our cooperation up to the next step, we can assure you also that as S&D Group, this observership idea is also something what we strongly support. We come now to we have a small change on the podium for those which were looking on the draft agenda, because our friend Ivan Vujovic from Montenegro will come on the second panel. So we have now here with us the pleasure, member of the Parliament of North Macedonia, and the quite fresh, not completely, but quite fresh president also of our sister party SDSM, Venko Filipce, with us. Please, Venko, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Your Excellencies, distinguished colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity to address this esteemed gathering. Today I wish to reflect on the pressing global, regional and national challenges before us, and to share a vision rooted in social democratic values, a vision that emphasizes resilience, cooperation and inclusion. In the context of dynamic geopolitical shifts, the rise of digital interdependence, and the imperative of safeguarding democracy and security, a genuine social democratic approach to transatlantic cooperation is both complex and essential. In these transformative times, the social democratic response is not only relevant, it is urgently required. It offers a principled and timely roadmap for socio-political adaptation, one that ensures no one is left behind while prioritizing transatlantic solidarity, digital humanism, social equity, and demographic integrity. Nowhere is this vision more vital than in the Balkans and in my country, North Macedonia, a nation at the crossroads of European aspiration and contemporary geopolitical vulnerability. Dear friends, therefore, let me share with you my opinion that we need a comprehensive social democratic agenda for the enlargement process. The enlargement process is not only a mechanical adaptation of laws or administrative fulfillment of the accession criteria. The enlargement process is becoming more and more an issue of utmost political and geopolitical significance. Unfortunately, in the past years, the enlargement portfolio was in the hands of the commissioner who was very close friend to the Prime Minister Orban. Did he implement the right agenda? We are now facing a government in North Macedonia which is not willing to proceed with the constitutional changes necessary to start the negotiation chapters with the EU. In the past month, they had an intergovernmental session, North Macedonia and Hungary, and Prime Minister Orban is coming out with a statement that we should be in some type of axis in between Hungary, Serbia, and North Macedonia as a kind of award of not starting the negotiations with the EU. The question is now, is there a hidden agenda? Is there something going on behind the curtains? Therefore, Social Democrats must insist on the democratic standards and adherence to the European values and the concept of human rights and freedoms as a most important precondition for the candidate countries to join the EU. The membership in the EU should not be presented as a participation only in the single market. Such approach is strengthening the authoritarian tendencies in many of the candidate countries, giving the autocrats an excuse to abandon the democratic norms and standards. North Macedonia is an example of the lack of strategy, especially among the progressive regarding the European integration. By allowing a bilateralization of the accession process, and here I'm referring to the Bulgarian demands, it is contributed towards the radicalization of the political situation in the country, the significant strengthening of the nationalistic political forces, and the rise of Euroscepticism in the population. The described development not only damaged the process of EU accession in my country, but also opened the door for malignant influence of the third extra-regional actors like Russia and China. North Macedonia now faces a bizarre situation of so-called self-imposed veto because the new government refuses to implement the necessary constitutional changes in order to proceed with the accession talks. However, despite the fact that the current right-wing government, by playing on the card of radicalization of the political situation, is damaging the credibility of the accession process, I haven't heard any critique by the EPP or their sister parties towards the ruling party of VMRO DPMNE. EPP will probably continue to support their sister parties everywhere, whatever they do. That is why I suggest that PES and the SD group in the European Parliament must have their own social democratic enlargement agenda. I'm not suggesting to undermine the expertise of the European Commission and to politicize the issue whether expertise is needed, but to set clear red lines of our social democratic standards for the fulfillment of the criteria for membership. Additionally, we as social democrats must understand that the stalemate in the European integration of each of the countries isn't a technical or administrative issue. The stalemate only reinforces the authoritarian tendencies and strengthens the right-wing and far-right political forces in the respective countries and damages the democratic development of these countries. Now it is the right time for social democrats to step up and reinforce the enlargement process that for too long was a hostage because of the inertia and the lack of vision. In the politics, there isn't an empty space. If Europe and social democrats don't fill the existing vacuum, then anti-democratic and anti-European forces will do that. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Venko, and also I can assure you that today in the morning press briefing, our Vice President Kathleen van Brandt already mentioned that not only S&D is the push for strong enlargement, but also that we have the trust in the new or in the current Commission that they also put now more pressure on the enlargement. And this Willy Brandt launch today is exactly to fill up the space which have others left. I take now a look on the screens if we, or if somebody technically can give us an indication if we are connected with Kiev. No. So it seems to be that we missed this connection out of technically. So anyway, I want to thank the table here for being so strict on the time, and therefore it's good to go to your questions or remarks. I have as first, Onur Eriyüce, our friend from CHP Turkey, which are suffering anyway a hard week. So please take the floor.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. I mean, I really appreciate this event. Enlargement, it's an important and it's a let's say, developing engine for the European Union, and as the candidate countries, we want to make our contributions to European integration. Of course, political parties play the main role, but the civil society organizations, scholars, and different actors within the society also can make this enlargement possible. So taking this kind of initiative, improving our interactions, and building these bridges, connectivity will definitely help us. And thank you very much to S&D Group for this initiative. And I also want to underline the importance of our collaboration, our progressive, our socialists cooperation. As you may know, in Turkey for the moment, the leader of our political movement, İmamoğlu, is imprisoned. That was an injustice, and we really thank our progressist friends, our PES, part of European Socialist and S&D Group, for the solidarity that they showed us. these kinds of developments are not isolated to the national boundaries, but these are now global European struggles. That's why giving this fight with you, it's a strength for us. And I know that in any other enlargement countries, socialist, social democrat, progressist parties, communities can suffer from the same difficulties. And it's good to be together. So this kind of events definitely help us. Thank you very much for giving me the floor.
Thank you, Onur. And I want to say the floor is now open to anybody or everybody. More, so whoever wants to take the floor, make some remarks. I have to apologize that Olga Stefaniskaya is, because she announced that they have a government meeting in Ukraine, so therefore we try to move her at the end of the panel. It seems to take longer. So I don't know, maybe we can ask Thijs Ruiten as S&D shadow also on Ukraine to take the floor.
Now you're giving me a lot of honor by speaking instead of... No, of course it's a pity that she cannot make it online, but of course we understand the seriousness of the situation. Even today, even at this very hour, Ukraine remains under attack. And if we needed an example today, why it is so important to have the revitalization of the bond that we have with all of you, it is probably in Ukraine. Because Ukraine shows us that peace, a just peace and a lasting peace will only come when it's also combined with fairness and with justice. And that is exactly what is missing now from the strategy that has been deployed towards that lasting peace. And we need to keep pushing for more military and financial support for Ukraine today. It's not over yet. It will only be over if this lasting and just peace will be achieved. But it also is a motivation for all of us, and I'm not saying this as an advice to our friends from the other candidate countries, but also as an advice to ourselves here in the European Parliament. We need to understand the historic moment that we have, and which sometimes only passes once in a couple of years, the historic moment, the historic opportunity that we have to do something that our children and our grandchildren, not only the ones in the candidate countries, but also ours, will be thankful for. And I want to end this brief intervention, dear Andreas, with something that I got used to tell people in schools when I do school visits in the Netherlands, because I noticed that people forgot why we started all this 70 years ago. We started it for a reason, and it was not intended to end with 6 or 12 countries or 27. It was intended to be a complete unification of Europe under the values of democracy, freedom and justice. A complete unification of Europe. So we have to remind ourselves, and also new generations, that we did not start this just as a project for these 6, 12 or 27 countries, but for this purpose. And that will be only finished when we have met the objective that we are setting here today, again, to ourselves, including the candidate countries that are present here today, but also, of course, Ukraine. And I hope that we will pass on the message also to Olga later on. But we need to take example in the braveness of the Ukrainian people today, and do exactly what we need to do also for ourselves, for our children, for our grandchildren. So leave it there, Andreas.
Thank you, Thijs Ruiten, who belongs to the group of MEPs which are always closely working on all these enlargement relations. I'll collect. I have now Giacomo Filipek, the Secretary General of the Party of European Socialists, which of course, is one of the partners of this Willy Brandt program, and the second foot where we are marching towards a better and more fair enlargement. Please, Giacomo.
Thank you, Andy. Since we are in the Willy Brandt program, I think it's an obligation to also quote his words, and I think it fits perfectly with the intervention of Thijs. Now, what belongs together will grow together, and this applies for Europe as a whole. These were his words on the Berlin Wall. The 1989, long time ago, we may say that our political position is exactly the same and didn't change. The Western Balkans, Turkey, can be part of Europe as a whole if the logic of a community based on the fundamental values of democracy, rule of law, human dignity, continues to be inspiring for all this beautiful continent in the world. But unfortunately, we know that there are many forces at play that do not share at all this view. And I believe that as a political movement, as the Party of European Socialists, the Progressive, the Democrats, we have to be aware of who our enemies are and how they play the game against our political parties. And we have to show no hesitation in defending and supporting our members, especially in this complicated region. I believe that the very first challenge that we have ahead in the next weeks will be to show all the possible solidarity and support to our friends and comrades from Albania for their elections on the 11th of May, because I do not see a path towards the European integration without the current government. And it is crucial that they continue to bring the Albanian citizenship towards their European future where they belong. So this is the very first message that I hope and believe our S&D friends and comrades will make their own when we get closer to the electoral day. But I also hear, and I hear it both from our friend Albin Kurti and Venko Filipce, some critical remark on the way the European Union is behaving as an institution vis-à-vis their specific situation. And they are not here in this panel, but I know that they will be part of the next one. I'm referring to our Serbian comrades. They may have similar critical remarks to express. Be sure of one thing. As the Party of European Socialists, we do not hesitate to stand where we need to stand, on the right side of history, vis-à-vis those players that undermine democratic fundamental principles, rule of law, and respect of human dignity and human rights. We will be with you in this, and if the European institutions, the European Commission, is not brave enough to stand for what truly matters for the life of the citizens of your countries, we will be there to remind them what their obligation is. And I trust that our MEPs in the S&D group will do the same. So I conclude by saying you can rely on our support, and we will never leave you alone.
Thank you, Giacomo Filipek, Secretary General of the Party of European Socialists. I will now put in also my Willy Brandt quote, as it is necessary. No, but as everybody does. And Willy Brandt was also saying peace but peace without freedom is not real peace. And we can add also freedom without social justice is also not no real freedom. So we see also how these issues are interconnected. I have now two speakers already who wanted raised the card for having the floor. The next one is Anna Doliche from the Party for the People of Georgia.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you to the European Parliament, to our partners, foundations, PES, SND, everyone, for having us here. We are here with a very representative Georgian delegation, and it's a pleasure to participate and to aspire to become part of this community. And echoing what was said by Madam Vice President, if there are moments when in Europe, in the European Union, people have forgotten what it is to be like a European, or if there is not enough inspiration to remember what it is that the European Union was founded for, Georgia, along with other countries, is a place where you can get an inspiration from, and I'm sure you're aware of it. Georgia, which might seem like a periphery for Europe, is an inspiration to remember the values for which this union was founded, as Georgian people have been demonstrating in the street for more than 120 days for Georgia's European aspiration. However, just as other countries, candidate countries, we are a buffer zone and we are a battleground between authoritarianisms and democracy. Just as other candidate countries who will speak and have spoken today, Georgia now is taking the hits, and Georgian people, 85% of whom are pro-Europe, despite of the huge governmental propaganda against Europe, 6 governmental TVs running 24-hour propaganda to ruin the idea of Europe for the Georgian people, and it's not working. So we are currently the buffer zone between European Union and authoritarianisms, and where we're lagging behind is the project of Authoritarianism Inc. You know, the project of Authoritarianism Inc. is very successful. They're fast because they're centralized, they're hierarchically organized, and they share information much more quickly than we do. So the foreign agents law, for example, that has been going on around authoritarian countries, that is curbing civil society in Georgia and political parties as well, quite soon, every day. It's been shared around authoritarianism very fast, and we're lagging behind. We have to be, as democracies with EU, as still hybrid countries, we have to be 10 times faster in networking and sharing information and sharing ideas. And so I hope that this conference and Willy Brandt program, reinstatement of it, will serve as a way to speed up the process of sharing knowledge. It's not so costly, but and therefore we have to use it as much as possible. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Anna, and definitely it is a starting point of sharing information and joining forces. The next is Tudor Ulyanovsky, from the president from the PSDE from Moldova.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here today to celebrate an important moment in history, and I fully agree that it's very important that each of us makes everything possible that all of our countries, especially for the Republic of Moldova, does everything to maintain strategic course for European integration. I am the president of European Social Democratic Party in the Republic of Moldova, which is the first extra-parliamentary party in the Republic of Moldova and the second largest pro-European party in my country. Definitely, we encourage the government to continue its efforts to strengthen and to make sure that there are sustainable steps conducted in the process of negotiations and opening of the chapters. And of course, we would like to encourage that this happens faster, but we do understand that it's very important to upkeep the EU standards while doing that. And from this perspective, we are definitely understanding that there is a huge risk, having in mind the electoral year in the Republic of Moldova, and in the fall of this year, Moldova is going to have parliamentary elections. And to be very honest and very blunt, the last thing we want to see is a Georgian scenario. My colleague from Georgia has mentioned that. And it is very important to make sure that the true and authentic pro-European parties reach in the next parliament of the Republic of Moldova, and to avoid those that are officially declaring themselves as anti-European or those who have become European overnight, which we cannot trust. And from that perspective, I think it's very important to have the support from the European Parliament, from the European community, from the brothers and sisters from the S&D group here. And from our side, we will do everything possible to make that happen, and count on our support. And we're ready to have open dialogue, but also to provide our expertise in the process of Moldova's accession to the European Union. I thank you for that.
Thank you, Tudor. I'm still looking in the room not to oversee anybody, but if not, I would, because... Tonino, perfect.
Thank you, Andreas. Of course, I also feel a pleasure to be with all of our friends from sister parties and all who can contribute to advance with the idea of next round of European enlargement in, I do hope, not so distant future. But we need to be very realistic and aware about hurdles we need to overcome in the next, I don't want to say couple of years, but next couple of the months. So in that sense, I would like to ask two questions. First to our dear colleagues, Taulant Bala and our friend from the Northern Macedonia, Venko Filipce. It's been for a long time that Northern Macedonia and Albania were bonds. Of course, on their way to European Union, you almost started together, and for a long time you've been in the same position. But in the meantime, the one buzzword appeared, it's decoupling. Now Northern Macedonia, in a way, is still where it was, and Albania, in a way, open chapters, and I would like to congratulate you, well deserved, in a way, but would like to ask you, what's the future of your relationship, in a way, and how do you communicate it now? Do you from Albania feel that you maybe now it's a time to do extra mile regarding the Northern Macedonia because of the certain, of course, influence you may have in the country, and to open maybe some channels to enhance also international position of the Northern Macedonia in the near future? And my second question, I would like to ask Prime Minister Albin Kurti and Taulant, you as well. Of course, we are here talking about Europe, European perspective for your countries, about history of policy of enlargement, but is, I don't want to say pink, but orange elephant is in the room. So my question is, especially regarding the time we remember so vividly in the first Trump mandate, do you feel right now a certain undue pressure coming from the new American administration and the Republic of Kosovo, in a way, especially you in Albania? Do you feel right now that this history is repeating like it happened during Mr. Granell period of time? Because we cannot exclude from equation American influence on the Western Balkans. So for us, it would be very, very, very important to know what's going on, because we see absolutely turmoils in global politics, and it's very hard to believe that we will not feel any type of echo coming from the, I don't want to say anymore white, but a black house which maybe resonated on the Western Balkans. Thank you in advance.
They're following online.
Thank you, Tonino. By the way, now I have now online connection from the S&D platform from Ukraine. Bogdan Ferenc, who's with us. Hello, Bogdan.
Yeah, hello, dear Mr. Schieder. Nice to have this chance to speak, and thanks a lot for this initiative, because I just a few weeks ago I had the chance to visit the European Parliament France S&D group, and we just discussed briefly also the new opportunities that could be very useful in the context of accession process, especially what you mentioned, by the way, better and fair accession. I really like this message, and I think that in our context, when the Russian war is still continuing, and we are also designing our post-war future in the context of fair recovery of Ukraine, this part of this process, better and fair accession process to the European Union, should be one of the main pillar. And on behalf of SD Platform, I would like to say a big thanks to all of our friends, Thais, Tonino, all other friends, Giacomo, for supporting us, because I think in these challengeable times it's necessary to have, as our friends from Georgia mentioned, inspiration. Of course, all of the candidate countries, they have their own path, peculiarities, but also we have a lot of in common, and this kind of exchange of experience could be quite useful. But at the same time, on behalf of SD Platform, I also have a few thoughts how we can just use this program, Willy Brandt program, in the context of strengthening our institutional capacity, because I think for all our countries it is necessary to strengthen our institutional capacity to make this accession process more better and fair. Also, how we can just focus on social context, I mean social dialogue in all this adaptation of our legislation, because with opening different chapters, it is necessary also to evaluate what kind of impact on our society these changes will have, and we need also progressive actors in our respectful countries to do this. That's why also quite practical thought or recommendations that we could also discuss, how we can just use also bilateral tracks in this Willy Brandt program to achieve the good results. I mean, at the political level, at the level of procedures, I mean, legislation, institutional capacity, but also we need, as I mentioned, progressive actors at local levels, at national levels, who could just be very efficient in the context of achieving more better and fair accession process. And last but not least, now greetings from Kiev. Unfortunately, these days and nights were quite horrible. Kryvyi Rih a few days ago, a big tragedy. A lot of children were killed by Russian missiles. And as I mentioned, the Russian war is still continuing. But at the same time, we should not only design our post-war future, but also we should work hard together with you, with S&D Group, with Party of European Socialists, with FEPS, with other partners and organizations to achieve more fair recovery. And I'm proud to say that we have this kind of vision, and our representatives from SD Platform, they are now also helping, supporting S&D Group in the European Parliament. And I hope that with this kind of frame, we could just do more. Thanks a lot, and good luck with this today meeting.
Thank you, and the best greetings also to Kiev from Brussels. And now I have four more speakers, and then I would close the list and ask the podium to give a short answer, and then we can continue. So the next one is Frauke Sebas. She's from the Stiftung Wissenschaft und Politik.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all the speakers for your interesting remarks. I would like to take the chance to ask three very short questions. One being on what was already mentioned, the growth plans, now referring especially to North Macedonia and to Kosovo. Given that both of these countries are currently under political blockage from the side of the EU, And the growth plans, of course, theoretically offer a chance to progress regardless. So I would be interested in your view on this. Mr. Filipce, your foreign minister, has been here last week, and he seemed very optimistic on the progress that North Macedonia can take. I would be very interested in your position. Then Albin Kurti, Mr. Prime Minister, you mentioned the Berlin process, and of course this year it is hosted by the UK, which has been kind of painfully absent from the enlargement process for some time. So maybe if you could share some expectations. And very lastly, coming from Germany, we are, of course, in the phase of a new government formation. The last government, after a very promising start, of course, the SPD-led government, very frankly, had a rather shaky footprint when it comes to the enlargement policy. So I'd be interested, maybe to all the speakers, what your expectations would be under the new German government. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last speaker from the podium is Ramina Kuko from Albania.
Thank you. I have a very, very short remark because we're talking about the future, but the future is youth. And unfortunately, youth is not voting us in Europe, and youth is not voting us in the US, meaning that probably this could be an idea on the education of youth on individual parties in our countries. It's really important in order to push forward our ideas regarding what's happening in the Social Democratic Front and to capacitate them in order to recognize all the propaganda that they are being under radiation. Because I'm very fearful that with the actual hype that exists on the far right and the right, where youth is more present there and not supporting the social democratic values, we are going probably to lose even the next train of elections. And we can speak here the best ideas ever, but if we are not in power, then it's useless to talk about them. So this was my remark. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramina. And now there is a lot of questions from youth to Berlin process. I might ask maybe the podium from in reversed order like we started. So, Wenko, please.
Thank you. Let me try to be very specific and concrete. The foreign minister might be here, but he just do talking. They don't do anything. What's behind it, we don't know. When we were decoupled from Albania, it's difficult to express the feelings. First of all, sincere congratulations on the progress. It's a real example on how a country or government should work for the good of the people and the whole region, basically. So it is decoupling, whether it's the feeling of complete, we were very sorry, we were very, very disappointed. Let's say a complete opposite feeling of decoupling with my wife, for example. However, I think we should not let much time for this difference to grow in between, because then later it's very difficult to catch up. The real question is what is the reason of the current North Macedonia government not to progress with the whole European path? We are suspecting that it is a huge influence of Hungarian government. Very tight relations with our Prime Minister, with Prime Minister Orban, loaning huge amount of money in completely untransparent way, announcing some big projects. Whether there is a business interest, we will see. The time will show. And whether there is a third party, third country interest behind it, it's also a huge question. Now, it is also very important on what is going to be the role of the Albanian parties in the ruling coalition in the government currently in the North Macedonia. When the government was formed, they have promised that constitutional changes are going to happen in 6 months period of time. And now they have canceled their promise. They should not do this. They are one of the crucial factors without which the government is not going to have a majority. They should push the nationalistic and right-wing Vămărodăpămâne to proceed with constitutional changes and to open the negotiating chapters with the EU. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I give the floor to Taulan, I just want to mention, I remember the reception when the negotiations started with Albania and North Macedonia. And there were still two social democratic socialist prime ministers giving together this reception and celebrating. And as this is no longer the truth that there are two social democratic prime ministers, this shows also the difference which the government and social democrats can make. Tauland, please.
Dear Tonino, I'm not happy that North Macedonia is lagging behind now. For so many reasons. You remember when this all started, North Macedonia got the candidate status on 2001. We got the candidate status on 2014. Montenegro started the negotiations on 2012. Serbia started the negotiations on 2014. We would like very much that every country starts the negotiations. Also, Kosovo deserves to start the negotiations as soon as we can, as soon as you can. And we want very much North Macedonia to start the negotiations. But international agreements need to be respected. There was an agreement, and the current government, the current majority in North Macedonia has to respect it. And they are lucky because the opposition will vote in favor. So when you have the opposition voting in favor, it's much more easy. So they have to deliver on this. And Venko Filipce was clear on the position of the, as an Albanian here, I can also tell that both Albania and Kosovo have appealed to the Albanian political parties in Kosovo to support, because I didn't say at the beginning, but I want to say it now, and for those who do not know. We Albanians have a say. It comes from our Renaissance. One of our biggest writers was saying that for we Albanians, the sun rises from the west. So basically, we have this kind of orientation for life. Secondly, I would also, it's a very difficult question, what you did after. But we are somehow also on this regard very, very quiet. The question about Mr. Trump as President of the United States. In Albania, if Albanians are asked to join the European Union, more than 90% are in favor. I don't think there is any other country in Europe, also including members of European Union, that has such a rate of support about joining European Union. But we are also lucky because we are the most pro-American country in Europe. So these two connect to each other, in my opinion. And the victory of Mr. Trump as President of the United States could also be seen as a big opportunity for Europe. At first, to think for stronger cooperation. And secondly, you know this quote of Albert Einstein, in the middle of every difficulty, there is an opportunity. Let us see this as an opportunity for Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Tauland, for the quote. So where does the sun in Moldova rise?
Definitely in the West. I think for all of the countries that share the same EU values, this is true. And I will only say that for us, enlargement, we see enlargement as in EU's own geopolitical interest, because Europe will be safe when all of Europe will be safe and secure. And from this perspective, until all countries that share the same values are part of the European Union, we won't be able to speak about the core objective of why the European Union has brought itself together in the first place. So here I definitely support a macro approach when it comes to the next wave of enlargement of the European Union. Very quickly on, even though it wasn't a question, on the engagement of youth, I think this is really core to our future of each country independently, but also of Europe. We in Moldova see a systemic problem of access of information, mostly through one source, and those are social media platforms. And it's extremely difficult to understand the bubbles that our youth live in. TikTok, Telegram, and other social media platforms have an extreme influence on how we perceive the world around us. And we do see these as channels to propagate disinformation among particularly the young ones. At the same time, in Moldova, we have started discussions at university level, at high school level, about the European Union, about the values that we share with the European Union, the benefits of the Union, but we need more of that. And when it comes to countering disinformation, I think no country can really stand alone in its efforts. We really need to think of a wider approach, how to strengthen communication about the European Union, particularly also among the young ones. In Moldova, no youngster remembers how it was to stand in lines for a visa, to be able to go even to neighboring Romania for a short period of time in our history. And it's unfortunate because, you know, being closer to the European Union brings advantages that we today take for granted in candidate countries like Moldova. Finally, the only question addressed on Moldova, how we see the German next government, I will only say that we look forward to keeping the same excellent cooperation that we had so far. For us, this is a core supporter of our reforms, of the implementation of our reforms, and we look forward to continuing the same good cooperation.
Thank you, Kristina Gerasimov and Albin Kurti, please.
Thank you. We have a 3D relationship with the United States: defense, development, and diplomacy. When it comes to defense, we did co-deployment a couple of years ago in Kuwait, and this year we are going to be also hosting country, not only participating one in Defender Europe 25. We're buying from US Javelin anti-tank system, but also Black Hawk helicopters. Because we have 48 forward operating bases in Serbia around our territory, 28 being military, 20 gendarmeria. And also Serbia brought close to our border, but also to the border of Bulgaria and North Macedonia in this southern part of Serbia, FK3 system from China, because they were buying this from China. So unfortunately, even as a social democrat, we have to spend in security and defense. I would rather spend this elsewhere, but it's a necessity, because you have to defend sovereignty and territorial integrity. There are no more internal sources of destabilization in my country that we cannot control or manage. But incursions from Serbia happen occasionally. Kosovo is now much stronger than 5 years ago. That's why I'm optimistic for the times ahead. The other D, development, with the shutdown of US aid, we are hurt because USA did help us. However, we did very well in terms of economic growth and social progress and democratic advancing and rule of law being in place and in order everywhere in every municipality of our country. So again, we shall prevail in this. The other D, diplomacy, there has been a couple of tweets against me during the campaign. We got 42% in the end, which is much more than two other parties combined, second and third, who are right. However, these tweets against me, I don't know how much influence, impact they had. We didn't do a proper analysis yet, and I don't know whether it can be really measured. However, I think that we will be able to navigate. On the other hand, it's very difficult to know how things will unfold. In my view, US under Trump administration is dealing with Ukraine and Russia in order not to deal with Ukraine and Russia because they want to have all the time, nerves and energy for this other struggle with People's Republic of China. This is my impression. So let's see how this will play out, but we have to have in our continent strong solidarity, but on the other hand, we have to strengthen our countries, each one of us. European Union has three important pillars. One is peace through anti-fascism, not any kind of peace, anti-fascist kind of peace. Second is European continental welfare state. Social justice is needed always, everywhere. And third is NATO security umbrella. We want to join also NATO, not only EU, to both benefit and contribute. So these three pillars are having some challenges, but I think that European Union has the necessary capability, capacity, but also rich tradition to come out victorious in 21st century like in 20th century it did. Berlin process is something that we look very much forward. In London, we had Summit of Berlin process in 2018. I liked very much the language and the content of the declaration back in London. I hope that we're going to see the same again. But the most important thing is this agreement on recognition of diplomas and qualifications of higher education. Because freedom of movement and freedom of the labor is nothing without recognition of diplomas. And Kosovo and Serbia still haven't fixed this thing. So I really hope that in London we will have this venue that finally Berlin process, common regional market, will be fully in place by having recognition of diplomas. What we ask from European Commission is to lift the measures against our country. My friend José Borrell, former High Representative and Vice President of European Commission, he wrote a letter to EU27 saying that the measures against Kosovo should be lifted. But as you know, with a silent email, they've put measures, but now when they are about to lift the measures, it is enough a member or a member and a half to say no or not to say yes, and then measures are not lifted. So we need measures to be lifted. We need to get questionnaire from European Commission, and we need candidate status. Not just because this is something that people want, but I believe that our country deserves.
Thank you, Prime Minister Albin Kurti, and thank you all. This is not the end of today, because we will have now a short coffee break, and shortly after 5 o'clock, Tonino Pizzola will continue with a podium together with our friends from Montenegro, Serbia, and Georgia. And meanwhile, don't forget, please, all the speakers, all the MEPs, all the, let's say, non-European Union guests invited, and also our friend, of course, Giacomo and Laszlo from FEPS and Ton to join here for a famous family picture.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's a time to start our work. Does it work? I think so. Please. Please. Dear colleagues, I would ask you to take your seats. We would like to continue our today's work. I think we are almost in a launching position for the second panel. Thank you so much. It's 5:17. Of course, it's time to start our second panel in today's Willy Brandt conference on enlargement. And I would like to thank each and every of you for coming to European Parliament premises. Of course, I would like to thank all our esteemed panelists in the second panel. Of course, now it's time to hear them, but before I provide them floor, let me just say a couple of introductory remarks from my side regarding the issue we are tackling this afternoon. First of all, I would like to underline once again that if it wants to continue its enlargement policy, one of the most successful policies in general, European Union should broaden the vision of its own mission in this turbulent time. Everybody did it, so I will do myself, quoting or referring to Willy Brandt. We all know that Willy Brandt became very famous as a man who pursued so-called Ostpolitik. In his time, it meant relaxation, de-escalation between West and East. And today it's my deep conviction that S&D Ostpolitik or Southeast politic means enlargement. I think and aim of this politics must be providing another millions of the people in still non-EU member countries with a fair condition to live properly. And our job here is to examine, is it possible to put our imprint as a socialist democrats, our imprint, political imprint on that policy. So I would like to know better from the people we invited to share with us their experience, because we are talking about people deeply involved in internal political affairs of their respective countries. And of course, I will start with our colleague coming from Georgia, country we mentioned very much in the course of the current year and a half. It's Mr. Georgi Gakharia, member of the parliament, former prime minister of Georgia, and of course, Mr. Georgiou, now I will give you a floor to start the panel.
Thank you. A member of parliament, but boycotting this parliament.
Good to know.
Because we have to remember that the last parliamentary elections in Georgia, unfortunately, was rigged and manipulated, and there is no European governments who are recognizing the parliamentary elections as well as government. So first of all, it's a great honor to be here. And I share with you not only domestic political environment, but at the same time, the Georgian people's aspiration regarding country's European future. We all are talking about enlargement, and of course, today we are happy about all Eastern European countries starting the process of accession negotiation, but at the same time, I have to remind that Georgia as a country was a leader in associated trio only 4 years ago, but unfortunately today we see the real democratic backsliding. There is no check and balance system. State of democracy is, and autocracy is a real everyday life for citizens of our country, especially after elections. When we talk about domestic policy in Georgia, and at the same time enlargement potential of country, of course we have to remind that when Georgians election took place several months ago, we all hoped that the democratic elections will be the excellent way to change the environment in the country, to bring country back on the right track of democracy. But unfortunately, after the elections, what we are seeing in the country, more than 100-day protests on the streets. We unfortunately have in the country more than 60 political prisoners. And now most of political forces in Georgia are calling for new parliamentary elections and first of all calling for releasing illegally arrested people. When we are talking with our European friends, the main question always is, what is the solution? How can we bring Georgia back on the right track of democracy? Honestly, there is no real plan, not in Brussels, not in member states, as well as we Georgian politicians also have the real problems how to bring the country back on the right track of democracy. But calling more than 100 days for new elections, we are very much thankful when we see that non-recognition policy and non-handshake policy from European states works. But if we see the main goal, the new elections, there is no any sign that someone from current ruling party is going to launch the new elections. That's why we need the real plan until the end of this year, because we all realize that the international environment in our region is very challenging, and if we and when big peace deal around the Ukraine will happen, we very much realize that there will be someone of friends of our country who will remind everyone that everything started from 2008, and 2008 was the first when Russia's violation of international order became the fact. For me, why this international dimension is so important? Honestly, we all hope for peace in Europe. At the same time, we all understand that the peace is possible after the Ukraine will win and after the peace deal will happen. But at the same time, we understand that the sides of this peace will be Western democratic countries and Russia. And if my country will not be a part of this big deal, it means that very naturally we are staying in South Caucasus context, and nobody knows when this historical chance to start accession process with the European Union will be possible for the country. That's why the main goal of all democratic forces in Georgia for this very moment is how to keep this historical chance, historical window opportunity for Georgia open, even when we have autocracy and autocratic government in the country. Because when we are talking about this historical chance, we all understand that it has its limits in time, and it's impossible for accession process to wait for Georgia years. At the same time, from the other side, we don't see the fast solutions when it comes to Georgia's democracy. So we very much realize that the SND group, as always, were very supportive of Georgia's democracy, Georgia's European aspiration. We all have to support the people who deserves this process of accession and European future. Why? we all understand that Georgia's European future, this is not political choice of citizens of Georgia. This is a civilization choice made 3 decades ago after gaining independence. And now, current autocracy and autocratic regime puts under question the choice, civilization choice of a nation. That's why we see that we see the real political conditions. We understand that the non-recognition policy as well as non-handshake policy from European countries, from Brussels, has its limits in time. We understand that the anyway, we will face municipal elections in October this year. Anyway, we need somehow to support the protests in the streets. Anyway, we have to support illegally arrested people, protecting the democracy in the country. But finally, we have to protect, first of all, the country civilization choice regarding the European future. So we very much relay that the SND group in European Parliament will support Georgia's civilization choice to be the part of European Union, and we Georgians and all Georgian democratic political forces will achieve the main goal to bring the country back on the right track of Euro-Atlantic trajectory. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kacharia, for your, I would say, comprehensive presentation of the current situation in Georgia. Of course, I'm sure that you raised the interest, and we are expecting questions in the second half of our panel. But now I would like to say that Serbia, as a candidate country for the next round on enlargement, it's written in the documents, is in the spotlight, with good reason, for the last 5 or 6 months. We all hear from European Parliament trying to question a number of our interlocutors about true situation within the country and what's the perspective of the immediate future in the Serbia. And absolutely pleased that we got here not 1 but 2 dear colleagues who will gladly take a stock on the situation in the Serbia and provide us with the necessary information for the future political moves we need to undertake. But for first, now I give the floor to Mr. Dragan Đilas, also member of the Parliament and chairman of the Party of the Freedom and the Justice. Dragan, please.
This is one of the hardest speeches I've ever had given in my life, really. I spent a long time thinking about whether to even come to Brussels. I made a decision yesterday afternoon, and only because of the people sitting here in European Parliament, especially Tonino and Andreas, great friends of Serbia. Why was I hesitant? Because I'm someone who always tells the truth, and if I cannot tell the truth, I stay silent, never lie. This is because I'm so white, and I understood very young, if I'm lying, everybody can see this. It is better don't speak on this way. And because of that, right now, I do not have the right to remain silent, even though I know that speaking the truth here in Brussels won't be pleasant. I cannot speak about Serbia joining the European Union, because I cannot talk about something that does not exist at the moment. Serbia has not been joining the EU for the past 13 years. It has been moving further away from it. And on the fact, the European Commission and European leaders are silent. Merkel, Macron, Scholz, Ursula, and others like them have been silent for a decade about the decline of democracy, the rise of corruption, crime, the persecution and beatings of journalists and opposition politicians, the misuse of the prosecution service, the spying on Serbian and Russian opposition figures, the attacks on Europe. While Vučić breaks students' jaws with baseball bats, calls university rectors to the face of evil, and cuts teacher salaries for striking, the European Commission remains silent. EU member state leaders stay silent as Vučić accuses them of financing some sort of cold revolution. Europe remains silent while Vučić calls in the FSB to prove that tens of thousands of people who were targeted with sonic weapons on 15 March in Belgrade are lying when they report health issues to doctors. They are silent even when Deputy Prime Minister Willy thanks Russian intelligence for helping Vučić regime crack down on dissenters. Publicly say thank you. The only thing worse than the deafening silence is when some European bureaucrat or even a leader actually speaks. Then we hear nonsense as they try to hide their willingness to their values for interest. Democracy for lithium, shells for Ukraine in exchange for the rule of law, fighter jets for media freedom, and airport concession for human rights. This kind of interest-driven support from European bureaucrats for a Balkan dictator dressed up as some kind of process is destroying the idea of united Europe. They speak of process, but not of people. And yet, only the people in the streets of Serbia are fighting for European values: truth, justice, institutions, democracy. They went to live like normal people across the continent in whose freedom their ancestors gave them lives and their limbs. They are not afraid of police cordon, masked thugs, or known criminals. They are not afraid of firearms, knives, or chains wielded against them. These people are invisible and irrelevant to the most European leaders and unwanted and dangerous to Balkan dictators. And so behind closed doors, the dictator and European leaders negotiate over what citizens loudly demand: democracy, rule of law, free media, and fair elections. But these are not things to be negotiated. This belongs to the people of Serbia as much as they belong to anyone living in Europe. I have only one more page. That's why it is an insult when the Enlargement Commissioner tells us there is no talk to accept Vučić. That's why it's an insult when Ursula von der Leyen hosts a dinner for Vučić or Macron tomorrow, accept Vučić and speak with him. Our friend from Georgia said that EU did not recognize the elections and they don't, you said, don't handshake policy. Unfortunately, with the Vučić, everybody handshakes. They sing with him, they dance with him. They're the best friend with him. Wonderful. And it is humiliating when, after all the lies, anyone still discusses with Vučić the media he consistently abuses and the electoral process he has utterly disfigured, and it is proved with the declaration of this parliament 1 year ago. You said this about Belgrade and Serbian elections. That is why today, only 1/3 of Serbia's population supports EU membership. This is big different with all other Balkan countries, with Montenegro, Macedonia, Albania, I think, and Georgia too. Only 33% support this. 13 years ago, when Social Democrats led the government in Serbia, it was twice as many. Today, only 9% of people in Serbia believe it will ever happen that Serbia join EU. Only 9%. So, dear friends, Serbia is no longer truly a candidate for EU membership. It's just that no one dares to say it out loud. That is why this topic of EU enlargement does not really concern us anymore, and I have nothing more to say about it. But I believe in the European Union, I believe in Europe, I believe in Serbia in Europe. I will take, because of that, this opportunity to ask you as a friends of my country and Serbian people, Serbian citizens, to carry across the continent we share the urgent call for help help Serbia, because despite everything, the only who can help the citizens of Serbia is the European Union. Involvement in resolving the crisis using the model of Macedonia and Montenegro, sending a mission to Serbia, supporting the formation of transitional government to enable free and fair elections. These are the moves that would ensure a peaceful resolution to the greatest social and political crisis my country has faced. But that's not all. These moves would restore people's faith in the European Union in Serbia, turn them back toward Europe, and show that we have not been forgotten or abandoned. If there is no will or strength for that, then all that remains is to remember the lyrics of the great George Balašević, ex-Yugoslavia people know who is this guy. He said in one song, "Travel on, Europe, don't wait for us. Don't wait for us, because soon we may no longer exist." Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dragan, for clear and loud assessment, plus verses of George Balašević now. But there's another also voice coming from Serbia, and it's my pleasure to pass the floor to Mr. Srđan Milivojević, also member of the parliament and the president of the Democratic Party. Please.
Thank you very much. I would like a translation, please. Uvažavajući preporuku gospodina Tonina Picule, zbog svega što se dešava u Srbiji ovoga trenutka, ja ću se obratiti na maternjem jeziku, jer vrlo je važno da precizno prenesem svaku informaciju. Pre svega, donosim vam slobodarski pozdrav iz Srbije. Srbije ovoga trenutka cveta sloboda, a vesnici te slobode su pobunjeni mladi ljudi, studenti i pobunjeni građani Srbije koji su ispunili ulice i trgove Srbije, ali i puteve Evrope, jer kao što znate, mladi ljudi iz Srbije ovoga trenutka biciklama kreću ka Strazburu da vam prenesu poruku slobode, da vas upoznaju sa situacijom u Srbiji i pre svega, pre nego što nastavim, želim zaista da se zahvalim svim poslanicima socijalista i demokrata na pravovremenoj i odlučnoj pomoći i podršci građanima Srbije i hvala vam za sve što ste uradili u toj našoj borbi i objašnjavajući šta se dešava u Srbiji. Neizmerna zahvalnost svih građana Srbije i mene lično kao predsjednika Demokratske stranke i narodnog poslanika zbog toga što su poslanici socijalista i demokrata uradili u Evropskom parlamentu. Hvala vam. Pre mesec i po dana ukazao sam da će studenti iz Srbije krenuti put Brisela i Strazbura i, nažalost, to rade zato što u Evropi još uvek ima političara koji Aleksandra Vučića doživljavaju kao faktora mira i stabilnosti i nekoga ko čuva tu stabilnost na Balkanu. Ja sam jedan od osnivača pokreta Otpor. I sećam se u vreme kada je nastajao pokret Otpor, u Srbiji je bio jedan drugi diktator na vlasti, zvao se Slobodan Milošević, a Aleksandar Vučić je i njemu bio saradnik. I ista slika i ista ocena Miloševića je bila tog trenutka da je on čuvar mira i stabilnosti na Balkanu i, nažalost, svi znamo kako se to završilo. Krajem prošle i početkom ove godine svedočimo da je na političku scenu Srbije stupio jedan novi pokret, pokret studenata. To je jedan najnapredniji, najprogresivniji pokret koji se pojavio u ovom veku na tlu Evrope. I to su ljudi koji su pokrenuli borbu za slobodu, jednakost i bratstvo. Liberté, égalité, fraternité. Srpska mladost danas na ulicama, ali i po evropskim putevima, poput ovih biciklista, traži da budu poštovani Ustav, zakon, da svi budu jednaki pred zakonom, da taj zakon važi za sve a ne samo za nas iz opozicije, dok za vlast ne važi nikakav zakon. I vidimo slike sa veličanstvenih protesta mladih ljudi u Srbiji. Vidimo da ti mladi ljudi slušaju srpsku nacionalnu pesmu Vostani Serbije i razbijaju srpsku zastavu. Ali vidimo jednu novost, veoma važnu, ne samo za Srbiju, već za čitav Balkan. Zajedno su u borbi za slobodu. Srbi i pravoslavci, Srbi i Bošnjaci, zajedno su u toj borbi katolici koji žive u Srbiji, zajedno su tu pravoslavni hrišćani. Oni se ljudi ne dele po verskim osnovama, po nacionalnim osnovama, što je veoma važno za Balkan. Uspostavljeno je jedno zajedništvo mladih ljudi. Važno je da znate da je režim Aleksandra Vučića 3,5 decenije, taj čovjek traje na političkoj sceni, vaspitavao ljude na politici mržnje koja rađa nasilje, a nasilje rađa sukobe. Na sreću, stasala je nova generacija ljudi koji više ne pristaju da se dele na hrišćane, pravoslavci, hrišćane, katolike, na hrišćane i muslimane. Jedina podela koju ti ljudi poznaju je podela na dobre, vredne, nenasilne ljude, tolerantne ljude s jedne strane i primitivne nasilnike. I ta odluka tih mladih ljudi zaslužuje podršku Evrope, zaslužuje podršku Evropske unije, zaslužuje podršku svakog čoveka koji se ovoga trenutka bavi politikom bilo gde u Evropi, da li u Srbiji, da li u Evropi. Slika te mladosti kada u Nišu igra kolo, srpska nacionalna igra, i kada to kolo igraju zajedno Bošnjakinje sa Zarom, muslimanke sa Zarom i pravoslavne hrišćanke i uopšte ne obaziru pažnju jedni na druge, pokazuje da Aleksandar Vučić nije uspeo da zatroje svakog čoveka u Srbiji i na Balkanu. Znate, on stalno koristi svoje medije i objašnjava nam da se negde neko u Briselu budi, u Hrvatskoj, u Zagrebu, da se gospodin Picula budi samo sa jednom mišlju. Šta ću danas da radim onim Srbima u Beogradu? Konačno je stasala generacija, vitalna generacija, koja je uspela da se odupre takvoj retorici i takvom narativu. To je veoma važno. To je nova slika Srbije, Srbije koja hoće da izgradi zemlju koju svi njeni građani doživljaju kao svoju, kao zemlju ravnopravnih i slobodnih ljudi. Danas nema nikoga ko se snažnije, temeljnije i iskrenije bori za evropske vrednosti u Srbiji od mladih studenata i građana koji su pobunjeni, koji su u pobuni. Danas je to većinska Srbija. Ona se korak po korak, dan po dan, nenasilno, fino, pristojno bori protiv najgoreg nasilnika na tlu Evrope. Ona se obračunava sa čovekom koji ih je vaspitavao da mrze, a oni su uprkos tome bili sposobni da nauče da vole. Ovo nije nikakva borba za vlast u Srbiji političkih stranaka. Mi svedočimo epskoj borbi dobra protiv zla. Ovo je sukob sa anticivilizacijskom politikom generisanja mržnje i proizvodnje nasilja, koji su doveli do najvećih sukoba na prostoru Balkana od Drugog svjetskog rata do danas. Zagovornik te politike, nažalost, je uspeo svojom kameleonskom politikom da se predstavi kao stabilokrata. To je čovek, vi znate svi ko je Vojislav Šešelj, osuđeni ratni zlikovac i zločinac. Taj čovek tvrdi da je Aleksandar Vučić njegov najbolji učenik. Vidite, Aleksandar Vučić je preko tog Šešeljevog šinjela ratnih zločina navukao evropski frak. I neki ljudi su u Evropi poverovali da je on evropejac i da je čuvar stabilokratije. Zahvaljujući njemu mi danas nemamo ni stabilnost, ni demokratiju. Ali zato je u Srbiji pobuđena nada da se na tom pobunjenom univerzitetu očuvala ideja u evropske vrednosti. Moram još da vam kažem da je apsurdno da ovakav pokret slobode i bratstva, koji svakoga dana preplavljuje ulice Srbije, ispred sebe nema ni jednu zastavu Evropske unije. Ali to je posljedica jednog drugog apsurda. To je posljedica činjenice da su neki od najuticajnijih političara Evropske unije, gde na sreću ne pripadaju socijalisti i demokrati, pružili glasnu podršku ovom da kažem, gorem režimu, najopakijem režimu na prostoru Balkana. I ono što je za nas razočaravajuće, ta podrška ne jenjava. 15. marta preko 500.000 ljudi je izašlo na ulice Srbije. Aleksandar Vučić je na svoj narod, na pobunjene studente, prvo slao kriminalce. I to su bili kriminalci iz najorganizovanijih kriminalnih grupa. To mu je bilo malo. Pa je na tu decu počeo da šalje i učesnike teškog incidenta u rejonu Banjska. Oni su zabeleženi kao učesnici napada na studente, a bilo ih je preko 80. I nijedan od tih učesnika napada nije procesuiran. Na posledku, 15. marta angažovao je jedinicu za specijalne operacije. To je po zlu čuvena jedinica na Balkanu, koja je, između ostalog, izvršila ubistvo prvog demokratski izabranog premijera Zorana Đinđića. Takve ljude je doveo Aleksandar Vučić da mu čuvaju vlast. A onda je 15. marta iskoristio sonično oružje i pucao iz zvučnog topa u pobunjene građane sa namerom da izazove stampedo i da izazove nove žrtve na protestu. I samo zahvaljujući prisebnosti i opozicijnih lidera, i studentskih redara, i samih građana, nije došlo do tragičnih posledica i velikog broja ljudskih žrtava. Ali nakon toga je jedna zemlja koja je kandidat za prijem u Evropsku uniju, koja u svom ustavu ima definisano da je posvećena evropskim integracijama, pozvala Rusku federalnu službu bezbednosti da utvrdi da li je korišćeno zvučno oružje ili ne. To je ista ona služba koja je 23. novembra 2006. u Londonu ubila Aleksandra Litvinjenka radioaktivnim polonijumom, koja je odgovorna za smrt Aleksandra Navalnog. Pa zamislite taj paradoks. Dok padaju rakete na Ukrajinu, Aleksandar Vučić poziva pripadnike Ruske federalne službe koji će očuvati balkanskog Lukašenka na vlasti tvrdnjom da nije korišćen zvučni top. Ako neka zemlja hoće da ide u Evropu, pa valjda ako nije u stanju sama, a Srbija ima i vojsku i policiju, bezbednosni sektor, ako nije u stanju da utvrdi šta se desilo, pa valjda zemlja koja je kandidat za prijem u Evropsku uniju prvo se obrati evropskim partnerima. Pa kaže, izvinite, mi imamo neku situaciju koju ne možemo da razrešimo, molim vas, pomozite nam. Nažalost, Vučić se obratio prvo Ruskoj federalnoj službi. On ima problem. Ono što Vučić obeća u Briselu, u Vašingtonu na engleskom jeziku, to Aleksandar Vulin, kad se završi Minhenska bezbednosna konferencija na kojoj prisustvuje i gde vas uverava da iza pobune u Srbiji stoje Rusija i eventualno Kina, taj Aleksandar Vulin nakon Minhenske bezbednosne konferencije odleti u Moskvu i to što je Vučić obećao na engleskom, Vulin ne zna da prevede na ruski. A i ako prevede na ruski, to ni Vučić ni Vulin ne znaju da prevedu na srpski građanima Srbije i da im objasne šta se dešava. Oni jedno pričaju vama. Nas u Srbiji uveravaju da je na delu neka obojena revolucija i da iza obojene revolucije stoji Evropa, a pre svega Zagreb, pa možda i neke druge regije na Balkanu. Izlaz iz postojeće krize ne mogu biti izbori. Kod Aleksandra Vučića mi nemamo slobodne, fer i poštene izbore, to su tvrdili evropski posmatrači. Znate šta je preporuka OEBS-a, šta je mišljenje OEBS-a nakon lažnih izbora 2023. i 2024. Jasno je napisano u izveštaju OEBS-a da takve razmere krađe nisu viđene u Evropi nikada. Nikada, nigde. To što se u Srbiji zove izborima, to ne liči na izbore. To liči na nasilje manjine koja je izgubila podršku, koja se koristi svim raspoloženim sredstvima da očuva vlast. Izlaz iz postojeće krize je pod hitno formiranje ekspertske vlade To ne znači da Demokratska stranka, kao što kaže Vučić, želi vlast bez izbora. Ali mi isto tvrdimo da oni protiv kojih je izašlo 500.000 ljudi na ulice nemaju nikakav legitimitet. Znate šta je sve Vučić uradio da spreči da 15. marta u Beograd dođe više ljudi? Zabranio je gradski prevoz u Beogradu, zabranio autobuski prevoz, ukinuo železnički saobraćaj. Da je mogao, on bi presušio i Dunav, da ljudi slučajno čamcima i brodovima ne dođu u Beograd. U toj vladi, ekspertskoj vladi, nikako ne smije biti predstavnika Srpske napredne stranke i aktualnog režima, jer mi zahtevamo i garancije za tu vladu, a te garancije jedino može da da Evropa. U evropskom interesu je da se ta kriza reši na civilizovan način, onako kako to se rešavalo i u drugim problematičnim regijama na Balkanu. Ako se Evropa ogluši o slobodarski poklič pobunjene Srbije, neće biti prvi put da je Srbija u kritičnim situacijama ostala sama, ali kroz istoriju se pokazalo da je to loše i za Srbiju i za Evropu. Pozivam vas da se ne opredeljujete za dalju podršku stabilokratiji. Podržite liberté, egalité, fraternité ovog velikog pokreta koji će Srbiju i ostale na Zapadnom Balkanu osloboditi od kleptokratije i nacionalističkih, šovinističkih težnji i izgraditi državu i društvu kojima je mesto među punopravnim članovima Evrope. Apelujem na savest Evrope, na vrednosti solidarnosti i pravde, da zarad nekih drugih interesa ne zanemerite želju većina građana Srbije da žive u slobodi i uređenoj državi. Pozivam vas da sačekate studente koji biciklima dolaze iz Srbije u Strazbur. Da pokažete podršku toj borbenoj mladosti. Znate, oni imaju jedan sleng mladalački. Kod nas se u Srbiji kaže, kad neko vozi biciklu, da nudi pedalu. Pedala je nešto čemu je prošlo vreme. Oni nude pedalu za jedan koruptivni, kleptokratski režim. I treba zaista čitava Evropa da podrži pedalu za korupciju, jer korupcija je u Srbiji počela da ubija ljude. Na kraju, želim da vas još jedan put podsjetim na zahtev Demokratske stranke da se jedna sala u ovom Evropskom parlamentu nazove po ubijenom premijeru doktoru Zoranu Đinđiću. To bi ovoga trenutka bila velika podrška demokratiji, demokratskim reformama i pobuđenim težnjama građana Srbije da živimo u slobodi. Ja znam da Srbija i Evropa zaslužuju da podržimo ovu pobuđenu nadu. Možda se Evropa umorila od proširenja, ali sam duboko uveren da se Evropa nije umorila od slobode, solidarnosti i bratstva. Podržite slobodu, solidarnost i bratstvo srpskog naroda. Živela slobodna evropska Srbija. Hvala.
Thank you, Mr. Milivojevic. And now it's a time before we start our debate here to focus, to turn our eye on Montenegro. Formally, Montenegro is a front-runner in enlargement process, but it's not without controversy. And now that about it will tell us more Mr. Ivan Vujovic, president of our sister party, Social Democratic Party of Montenegro. Please.
Thank you, Tonino. Dear friends, at the beginning, just to apologize for my outfit. It was because of the flight problems and losing of the luggage, but I think that this is the way how to put substance, let's say, before the forma, and I think it's a formal also for the overall EU policy to put the substance before the forma, which has not been the case for many time, excluding European Parliament. And that's, I think this is the occasion really not to be polite or to say something that is not right, but to repeat what my colleague, Mr. Milivojevic, said, and Mr. Gilas, to really express our gratitude, especially to our social and democratic MPs in the Parliament, who always raise their voice, targeting concrete problems, having proactive, direct, and open and frank approach when it comes to the problems that are taking place in the region, and they are numerous. And Mr. Tonino Pitsula, He is the personality who knows the region very much, and he is one of these personalities who helped us a lot, I think, in the region, in Montenegro also, and to try to, let's say, open the eyes to the others who are not willing to have that kind of the proactive, direct, and frank approach, I would say. When it comes to the, we are finding, I try to give, first of all, this broader approach, let's say, where we as the European Union and the whole geopolitical stake is taking place. At the moment, I think we are in some kind of the crossroads, and we witness what is going on at the geopolitical stage, and it has to have this kind of the reflection on what is going on in the European Union, what is going on in the Western Balkan, as what Churchill said, it's the softest belly of Europe. And if you have negative practices, if you have negative tendencies worldwide in our Euro-Atlantic space, in European Union, then be sure that such tendencies are especially seen, especially visible, and especially put in place in the Western Balkan, in those candidate countries for EU. I could say maybe today we are technically, bureaucratically, formally closer to EU, because maybe when comparing to what happened a few days ago, maybe we have more closed chapters, but I'm not sure that when it comes to system of values, that today we are closer to European Union than we used to be 4, 5, or 10 years ago. That's something that we should all take in mind, have in mind. And what is going on in Serbia is just, let's say, very illustrative, and it's let's say ordinary, classic autocrats that is molestating, and that is who is molestating their citizens for 12, 30 years from now. And I think I would agree, because we've been in one state for many years, for many decades, and as Mr. Picula also, we from Montenegro even more are familiar with what is going on in Serbia. I'll try not to repeat what my two colleagues from Serbia said, but really what is going on there is practically some kind of democratic revolution. And as regards Vučić regime, I would say maybe for some of us it would seem like a harsh definition, but I'm completely positive and I'm completely sure that this Vučić regime is much worse than Milošević regime. Is much worse than Milošević regime when it comes to the system of values, when it comes to political tactics, when it comes to control of the whole of the society. Fortunately, the other circumstances are not like in Serbia, Montenegro, or former Yugoslavia in the 90s, so the consequences are not as huge as they used to be there. But difference between, you know, what's the difference? Milošević was, let's say, socialist, and Vučić is radical. Vučić is radical. He is the best pupil of war criminal Vojislav Šešelj. And that's why I completely agree with my colleagues who express their madness, let's say, with how some EU functionaries, how some EU bureaucrats, how some EU people from the Commission, so on, is treating this problem. I'm excluding European Parliament or most of European Parliament from that. And because there is no space to be between when it comes to what is going on in Serbia these months, let's say so. When it comes to Montenegro, you know, we have to bear in mind that Vučić, we can define him as Putin proxy, let's say, in Western Balkans, in European Union neighborhood. But we have in Montenegro political forces which are Vučić's proxies or Putin's proxies directly, being in power in Montenegro, being strong in power, and I'm afraid being stronger and stronger. And some local elections that are taking place and campaign these days in Montenegro, I'm afraid, is going to show that. And those forces who thought that with open Vucic and Putin proxies, pro-Russian forces, substantially pro-Russian, not declaratory. Declaratory are all pro-EU. Vucic saying that he's for EU, even less and less, but he still says that he's for EU. And I would remind on one very good definition of our Moldova on the previous panel, who defined them as pro-EU personalities or pro-EU forces overnight. These are pro-EU forces, let's say, overnight, who are also in power, some of them, in power in Montenegro. I think we should be more afraid of such personalities or such forces than from those who are openly anti-EU. Because I think that realize in one moment that their goal will be closer to realization if they just put this formally and declaratory, these European clothings, and saying, okay, we are for EU on the ground, on the domestic ground, they do everything against EU values. And that's the problem. That's the big problem. Not so expressed, not so visible, and not so dramatic like in Serbia, but also in Montenegro. You know, when Serbia was fighting against Milosevic, you had in Montenegro a strong anti-Milosevic government. Strong at that time government who made the solution from this Milosevic regime in one period, 1997. And we, at that period, demonstrated strong support in many, many ways to the Serbian opposition of that time. Mr. Djindjic was leading, let's say, substantially the Serbian opposition. Today, do we have, let's say, from the Montenegrin side, that kind of the support? No. My party is one of the rarest party, let's say, in Montenegro, which demonstrated strong support to the Serbian students, to the democratic requests, to the request for democracy, for more freedom, for liberation from autocratic regime in Serbia. No one from these ruling parties in Montenegro didn't do that. Just one remark, trying to be, let's say, trying to be productive, referring to what Mr. Milivojevic and Mr. Gila said when they claimed the request for, not them, but we know that these requests for transitional government in different forms, different shapes, I think are being heard. That we had such example. It's good for you to know. Some of you knows that, but 2016, when we were in the political crisis in Montenegro, we had, it was not dramatical like today's in Serbia, but we had support, we had assistance from Commissioner for Enlargement, that time Mr. Hahn it was, from our delegation in Montenegro. We had political willingness in EU to foster this process and to be part of this process of creating of transitional government in Montenegro in 2016, which in some way relaxed political tensions in political situations. So there is a space for EU to do something more productive, not to act like practically alive of Vucic. It's kind of perception that people in Serbia and people in the region can some kind of the conclusion can have, but to act, for example, in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vujovic, and we heard presentation coming from the three countries, Georgia, Serbia, and Montenegro. But now it's time for your comments, your questions, and I'm opening floor. And first in the line is our colleague Lana Perlici. If you want to speak, please indicate somehow. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Picula. My name is Lana Prlić. I'm coming from Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'm representing the Social Democratic Party of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And first of all, I would like to thank for the opportunity to speak here today, and also to send you regards and apology from the President Nikšić, and also he is now as a Prime Minister of Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and also as a President of the Social Democratic Party. Is now on multiple sides, let's say, not just a negotiation in the process of trying to put out of the coalition Mr. Dodik, but also of the leading the federation. I will try to sum up as shortly as possible what is happening in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I'm sorry if I repeat some things that you already know, but I will try to use this this opportunity to tell you what is going on very shortly. I will not mention what government that is led by the SDP and President Nikšić is doing, because those are the good things. But bad things that are happening and that are threatening the peace in Bosnia and Herzegovina like never before since the 1990s, it is maybe not so grateful to talk about good things while we have threatening peace and security in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So Dodik is the person who is on the blacklist of the many countries, not just in Europe, but also the American blacklist. Also, he had attack against the constitutional order, where he, as a president of Republika Srpska, signed the document where he naturalized job of the police and prosecutor office in Republika Srpska. So the main question is when he will be arrested. So everyone is asking that. I have to tell you the information that you probably maybe know, that unfortunately our agencies cannot do that by themselves. So I here ask for your help and support I will not say the word pressure, but to help us in assisting by the side of European Union forces for Bosnia and Herzegovina to assist to our institutions to arrest Dodik. Since we have information that is public now, that if forces of police forces of Bosnia and Herzegovina do that just by themselves, there is some information that Dodik will not react in a good way, and that will threaten peace more. So as the previous representatives of the countries and the parties said, there is open a great space for the Russian influence, not just in the region, but also in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And that is happening through also Dodik by his great fathers, that is Putin, Vučić, and Orban. Also, I would like to mention that as at the very beginning of my speech is that SDP is right now in a coalition with Dodik. But we are trying to change that since we said that we will no longer be in a coalition with a person who did not find the EU path and peace and security as priority in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And the last, I would like to also to thank the SD group members who keep our voice in the EU Parliament, and I would like to offer you any help for any kind of information that you need to be our voice in the Parliament, not just by me, but also from our colleague of Sasha Magazina, which also is the president of Nermin Nikšić, and the others. And the last but not the least, I will say again, so we are trying now to make a new coalition in the state government with the opposition from Republika Srpska, and we call that pro-EU coalition, where the only program will be based on the path to EU. And also I was asked to mention here, but I also saw that previous speakers mentioned that in Bosnia and Herzegovina we have unfortunately some representatives from the EU who are forcing us to sit at the same table and talk to Dodik again. Of course, we are not seeing EU through some of the individuals. We see EU as a part of our future. I know that a lot of speakers were talking about the past. I'm someone who is born in 1993, and the past for me is in the past, and we have decisions of International Court of Justice, and we have facts on the table now. We have to fight for some new facts to be part of the history and to make future better, and only future, or not just Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also the region, is to be part of EU family. Once more, I would like to thank all SD members who are raising voice for us in Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Perlich, and now floor goes to Mr. Guido Koenig.
Thank you very much, and let me start by saying how incredibly satisfying it is that we're here with such a large audience and so many high-level people talking about something that we're working on all week. And to see this come together really emboldens me to believe that we can start making a difference. So thank you all so much for showing up and being here. I have two questions. One is, when we look at the previous European Commission period with Commissioner Varhelyi, where hopes and dreams about enlargement came to die, we have a big difference now with Marta Kos, and I'm really curious to hear if there's any experiences that the candidate members can already share about dealing with the current Commission and the plan, what kind of hopes there are, and in specifically about Georgia and also Turkey, really, where the current government is really hard to deal with in terms of enlargement. Do they expect the Commission to also come to them as opposition and kind of a shadow government? Do they see any openings there with the Commission? And just secondly, because I was really impressed by Mr. Gilas's contribution in the beginning, speaking only truth, and the same goes to both parties from Serbia. The current protests, the protesters do not want to have anything to do with the current political parties. And I know the political parties would love to be part of the solution, so I'm asking them, what are they doing to be part of the solutions that the protesters are calling for, knowing that the next chapter will have to become political, so there has to be some way forward where the protests and politics will meet again. I'm really curious what their strategy is to be part of that future. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well. Of course, time is running very fast, so I need to close a list of speakers. There's two of them, two ladies, of course. Madam Uljarević, please.
I'm Daliborka Uljarević from the Center for Civic Education from Montenegro, which is the civil society organization. And while I was listening, the leaders of the progressive parties mainly diagnosing the democratic decay in the respective countries, I was also missing to hear the concrete strategies or proposals to deal with these veto players both in the region and, let's be frank, also within the European Union, and how they can do that. I mean, I'm talking about SD group, civil society, and EU institutions. What could be done in a more concrete aspect to boost democratic change? And secondly, how can progressive parties across the region work more closely to counter democratic backsliding and the capture of the institutions? Because previously we haven't seen these clear views. And let me just support this with one example. When these protests in Montenegro have been happening almost 5 years ago, so-called Litias, which have not been progressive at all, I haven't heard this kind of the criticism from Serbia. Actually, on the contrary, most of the Serbian political parties, including progressive ones, were supporting that. On the other hand, when you ask Montenegrin citizens today whether they support protests in Serbia, which are, I believe, in most of the scope progressive, almost none of the political parties at the level of the government would support that. What I'm trying to say is that I don't see the genuine understanding about the processes within the countries. Everybody is far too much focused on its own country, which is also kind of making the power of the Social Democrats much weaker in the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Milarovic. And finally, Madam Iliriana Johnny.
Thank you. Iliriana Johnny from Carnegie Europe. Due to the context of my question, I would like to speak in what I call Montenegrin, but will be easily understandable in Serbian and Croatian as well. Mislim da govorim za sve mlade ljude sa Balkana da smo ponosni na omladinu Srbije koja pokazuje veliku hrabrost u iskazivanju otpora prema autoritarnoj vlasti Aleksandra Vučića. A ponosna sam i kao Albanka iz Crne Gore na njih. Pored narandžastog slona kojeg je gospodin Picula spomenuo u prethodnoj sesiji, moramo govoriti i o jednom drugom slonu. Dok evropskih zastava nije bilo na protestima u Srbiji, zastave Kosova jesu na leđima biciklista koji dolaze iz Srbije za Strasbourg, to jest zastave na kojima se govori da je Kosovo dio Srbije. Sada smo svi tu, premijer Kurti je bio dio prethodne sesije, a pitanje je za gospodina Đilasa, gospodina Milivojevića i gospodina Piculu. Kako se radi o istoj političkoj grupi, da li postoje inicijative, dijalog između vas u vezi ovog pitanja, kako vi gledate na to i kako su progresivne partije drugačije po pitanju ove situacije? Hvala.
Hvala vama. Thank to you. Of course, now I'm pleading to all panelists to do the miracle. Not to enter European Union tomorrow, but to try to answer these questions and comments in maybe next, let's say, 12 minutes before we pass the floor to our coordinator for Foreign Affairs, Mr. Nacho Sanchez Amor. Let's start reverse from Mr. Vujovic.
I will try to reflect on what respected my friend Mr. Dalibor has said, and just one remark. That was maybe not so well expressed like she does, but that was also my point. We are not enough interconnected, and we cannot say. That's why I said we cannot say what's going on in Serbia. That's very nice excuse for our ruling party personalities and representatives. Okay, it's internal business of Serbia. We don't care about that. Somebody from EU also could say or could imply something like that. Okay, we have power there. They are officially, formally in power. That's their business. We cannot interfere. So I think it's completely wrong approach, because it's not like that. It's much bigger what is going on there. It doesn't matter today is happening in Serbia. It could happen somewhere else. That's why I make analogy with what was going on in the late 90s with Milosevic regime, because that is a kind of the let's say center which produces, which disseminates so toxic, destructive and negative influence all over the region. That's why it cannot be treated as only internal matters in our thoughts, in our endeavors. It cannot be done like that, because we know to what extent Vučić regime is interfering in the matters of Montenegro. I said he has his proxies in the government. We know to what extent Vučić regime is interfering in the processes in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So that's why I completely agree with that, and I also appeal on much more interconnection between ourselves. And I'm aware also that between social democrats, it has also been the case what Freud would say, narcissism of small differences. That's something that we have to overcome. We have something like that within one country, between similar forces, that we cannot sit for one table because we have some, I don't know, problems from the past. We in Montenegro, my party, overcame that and created one bigger political platform called European Alliance with some forces which are ideologically practically the same in spite of some differences in the past. I think that we should follow that kind of examples. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Milivojević.
Iskoristit ću prvo priliku da odgovorim na pitanje u vezi izlaska iz krize u Srbiji. Dakle, Demokratska stranka je podržala formiranje univerzitetske vlade, vlade koju bi sačinio univerzitet i eksperti sa univerziteta, jer univerzitet je ovoga trenutka deo srpskog društva koji uživa najveće poverenje od građana Srbije, daleko veće poverenje nego institucija predsjednika Republike, pa čak i samog parlamenta ili lokalnih samouprava. To nije zaklanjanje iza univerziteta, to je samo izbijanje iz ruku argumenta Aleksandru Vučiću da mi želimo vlast bez izbora, a s druge strane on je izgubio legitimitet da formira vladu i onda bi to bio jedan put izlaska iz krize uz podlačim posredovanje Evropske unije koji bi garantovali da to što je dogovoreno mora da se sprovede. Kada govorimo o situaciji u Crnoj Gori, ja smatram da je Crna Gora daleko odmakla na putu ka Evropskoj uniji, da je Aleksandar Vučić trenutno više zaokupljen da spreči Crnu Goru da uđe u Evropsku uniju nego što je zaokupljen nekim drugim regionalnim problemima. Ja nikada nisam birao kao demokrata domaćina tuđe kuće i mislim da je nepristojno da se bilo koji Srbije meša u unutrašnje stvari Crne Gore oko izbora kao što radi Aleksandar Vučić. To je vrlo loša politička praksa. I za pitanje druge poslanice u vezi sa onim što rade studenti, znate, ja sam apsolutno uveren da će mladi ljudi u Srbiji ne nasiljem rešavati svaki konflikt koji postoji. To što oni ovoga trenutka rade bez ikakvog uticaja političkih stranaka, po svojoj želji, po svom nahođenju i kao što imate i neke druge zastave na protestima, tako imate i tu zastavu koja kaže da je Kosovo deo Republike Srbije. Molim vas da uvažite da je za neke ljude u Srbiji to još uvek realnost. Hvala.
Hvala vama, gospodine Milivojeviću. Gospodine Đilas, izvolite.
First of all, I don't understand why always we have to speak about Kosovo, Serbia, about Dodik, about all these things. I think that we should focus on something what my party proposed 5 years ago. This is declaration of reconciliation between Serbs and Albanians. We can do the same with the Serbs and Bosniak. We can do the same for the whole region, because unfortunately in this region, after the 30 years, 25, 30 years after the war, we continue live in the wars and speak on this way. And it's a lot of young people, these young people, and you mentioned they born in the Serbia after the war. They did not remember this time, in this period of this time. Okay. They believe that Kosovo is part of Serbia. I believe in this. This is my position. But I think that it's necessary to speak, not on the way how they speak Kurti and Vučić. They speak on the real way that we focus on the people, not use this for some ratings and some these problems. I don't speak about Dodik because Lana knows what Dodik did for the election in Serbia and how helped the Vučić. These guys, maybe other people that don't know, that these guys founded the idea that export voters from the Republic Srpska to Belgrade and vote and win an election. This is a wonderful idea. This is something very interesting from some faculty of political science. But I think reconciliation is a key word. I think that we have start to speak on this way and give these children, they're not children, they're 20 years old, come on. Some of us remember this time, I don't remember because it is a lot of years ago, but they are young people, come on, give them a chance to speak. If they start to speak, I think they find solution. And finally, solution for Serbia I see in this transitional government. Democratic Party has one idea, 8 other parties had the idea. I think it's very interesting to support university government, this proposal, but we don't have this proposal. We have proposal for 8 parties that Prime Minister and the 8 main ministers give the academic community, and other ministers have to speak, because it's not realistic that somebody can expect that the ruling party had the majority in the parliament will not have any influence on this government. This is story for some nice movies, but not for real life. And last, thank you very much, everybody, to be here, to listen us. This is not easy. I have to tell you, I listen everybody. I listen myself, and this is dramatic. Thank you very much for help. And Srđan Milivojević said this is very important. Really, thank you very, very much to all MPs for Social Democrat parties for 2 things. First, that you really believe in idea that Serbia join the EU, maybe only with the Greens, or only. And second, it help us that somebody in Europe really heard what happened in Serbia. Thank you for your declaration resolution 1 year ago. This is a very important thing for us, and I only can ask you to continue with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gilas. And floor goes to Mr. Gaharia.
First of all, the new commissioner is very active regarding enlargement process, for sure. However, in Georgia's case, when you have government without willing to be the part of this process, at the same time suspending real steps toward European enlargement, it's very much difficult. But we have to remember that we have allies, 85% Georgian citizens voting for European enlargement and European membership. And the main demand of these people is Georgia in the European Union. So what we are doing for this very moment, and it's very important, how to structure the plan regarding Georgia from Brussels' perspective for next year until the end of this year, to convince current Georgian government to launch new elections and release illegally arrested people. This is a key for Georgia's success, and this is how can we see peacefully to bring the country back on the right track. So we very much rely on Commissioner's activities, and we still are happy how they are dealing with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaharia. Of course, now it's time for the famous last words. In conference language, it's a closing remark. But before I pass the floor to our coordinator, Nacho, let me ask you to reward our panelists for all their dedication and investing in democracies under the very, very tough conditions they are fighting for. So thank you once again, and you can count on us. Nacho.
Thank you. Thank you, Tonino. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, panelists and friends. Some personal friends I would like to mention. Tom, thank you for your work. Giacomo, Onur, Eyüp, Dimitri. Some people in the house with personal bonds with them in this endeavor of the Willy Brandt program. I didn't encounter a proper quote of Willy Brandt. I know there was some today, but Juanjo didn't have the time to look for a proper quote of Willy Brandt. And then allow me to jump this protocolary mention of the quote of Willy Brandt to go to the fundamentals, saying that this is, being the conclusions of this gathering, is not in any way more than a very, very provisional conclusions, because this is the starting of a process. This is starting of, I hope it's going to be a fruitful path to the participants in the Willy Brandt. In itself, the fact of we are reshuffling the Willy Brandt program is a political declaration. It's a message in itself of our recommitment as a social democrat family, many of the members here, with enlargement. And for that reason, I think in this inauguration gates of the program in the new format, is good to come back to the basics, to come back to the fundamentals. Recalling that historically the appetite for enlargement has been linked to geopolitical occurrences, to the geopolitical situation. It happened with the young democracies in the south of Europe after the dictatorship. It happened with the Berlin Wall collapse, and always in the beginning of the process of regaining appetite for enlargement, there was some kind of geopolitical seismic or less seismic move. In our case, it has been the war of aggression of Russia on Ukraine that has, let's say, put in shambles the security architecture of Europe, and created again the appetite for enlargement. It was Russian. It's true that Trump created a new mood for many reasons, but it's good to remind that the process of putting again enlargement in the agenda was well before the second Trump. Even if I think if the fact of the war created the necessity of thinking on enlargement in a reactive, in a defensive mode, inevitably, I think the Trump policies, can we call about policies or attitudes? The Trump things have created a different mood. And the mood is not so defensive, it's more linked to the feeling of proud. It's to the feeling of, we are a big thing, we the European Union. We have to show off that we are a very powerful stakeholder in the political arena, in the international arena. We have to follow what many citizens are doing, because in the last years, demonstration with European flags, point blank, happened in Georgia and in many other, but not in European countries. And now we are having some demonstration of young people in our capitals waving European flags, and we have to learn the lesson of sometimes we have to show ourselves with more proud, being more assertive, and being very proud of what we did and we are able to do. But geopolitics mean being at the origin of some of the processes, of the waves of enlargement. It can be the drive of the process. We have to be very clear on that, and it's good to remind everyone that even if the geopolitical occurrences are at the origin of the appetite, the accession process is what it is. It's normative, it's well ordered, it's having to fulfill and to deliveries in the fundamentals and many other chapters, and there are no shortcuts. Meaning, allow me to repeat a thing to everyone that I sometimes use to my Turkish colleagues. Membership is about democracy, no shortcuts. Partnership could be another thing, more transactional, more flexible, more dictated by the urgencies of the moment, but membership is about democracy, and there are no shortcuts. And there are no shortcuts to anyone, meaning it's not a shortcut in the sense that is being used currently by the Turkish authorities that are spreading universally in the public opinion in Turkey. Our military power is opening the gates of being member of the European Union. This is in every TV, radio, and paper in Turkey is that thing. And on the other side, not for being more threatened or more attacked or more at risk, we can jump the process or the stages of the accession process. The accession process is what it is. It's very demanding. I have my own personal experiences because my country, Spain, it's relatively young member of the European Union. I know how difficult and demanding was the process of the accession of my country. But even we have some vaccines. Sometimes the authoritarian leaders that we suffer in some candidate countries, they always with this rational. Yeah, of course, democracy and so on, the fundamentals and Copenhagen, but you have Hungary. Meaning, yes, we have to say, yes, we have Hungary. But Hungary is the vaccine, not to repeat again the mistake of having on board immature democracies. Meaning, it's not an alibi to downgrade our demands, it's a vaccine to continue demanding exactly the same level of deliveries in the fundamentals. And I had a quote of Minister Valla that said this morning that they are doing what they are doing because they want to be a democracy. And this is very important. There are no incentives to substitute the political will to become a democracy. Europe is not obliged morally to drag any country to be a democracy. We can have incentives for every part of the process, for agriculture, for banking, for whatever. But we can't in any way substitute the political will of a society to become a democracy. And for that reason, when sometimes use the idea of we didn't have incentives enough, and meaning you only started the process of being a member of the European Union for some incentives, and not for the deep-rooted political will of democracy, this is a mistake. And we have to remind everyone that the political will of being a democracy is the most deep fundamental of the accession process, and it can be substituted, and it can have incentives in some way. What is the dilemma? The dilemma is the dilemma that we all have experienced. What to do, in which way, which countries having a clear authoritarian trend, Serbia and Turkey, when there is a civil society pro-European and pro-democrat, how to engage in the official level, how to engage with the civil society trying to circumvent the official level. And this is a thing we have to think about in the coming months and years, how to address the accession countries in which democracy is being eroded gravely, and how to sustain the European hopes of the civil society, Georgia, in which we have to, in some way, to combine, and this is the role of Mrs. Kos, how to combine the official level of engagement and the support of the civil society that are our. And allow me to finish with Tonino. I think we talked about that. I had a meeting with a former mayor of Zagreb who was engaged in the accession process of his country. And he explained to me and to others in a conference that they started the accession process. It appeared very, very bureaucratic. They were ticking the boxes, and the law, and then they decided to launch the criminal cases against the war criminals. And he noticed what a complete change of the mood. Following this thing, the mood of the European Union was different, because there was the proof of a commitment of doing not easy things that is part of the accession process. And this is a thing that we have to plow on in the future with the Willy Brandt program, of course, and many other tools that we have at our disposal, with our contact with the parties, with the contact with the party of Socialist European Party, with the national parties, with your colleagues and friends here in the Parliament. There are many ways, but I think the Willy Brandt program with this new format is condensating and it will be our political will to really conduct the accession process in your cases with a progressive agenda and imply not only the things that sometimes in the other side of the Ribelliard are very real politic things. This is the other side of the Ribelliard, and the other side of the Ribelliard is the place of the real politic, and we want to combine both approaches to try to help our comrades, our sister parties, to be key part in these processes. Thank you for your time. Tomorrow, you are some of us are continuing with the second part of the event with FEP, FES, Max van der Hoel Foundation, and the others. But in my case, this was my role. Sorry for having extended, but all the best. Thank you all for your parties, for your countries, and you have friends. You have friends in this house, and you have some friends in the other side of the Ribelliard. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nacho, for your remarks. And I would like to say we are approaching to an end of the conference, but we are in the midst of one very important process in politics, an enlargement process. And rest assured that we are with you. We try to guard you and guide you in all possible ways we can. But of course, I would like to thank to our colleagues from the Secretariat, from S&D Group, who made all this possible. Thank you, and interpreters as well. Thank you. See you.